Good afternoon and welcome to today's proceedings of the Senate on this 25th day of September 2019. This broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. The broadcast is available on Senate TV as well as KBC Channel 1. You can also stream it on YouTube courtesy of the Parliament of Kenya YouTube channel. This afternoon, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 63 of 2019, will be read for the first time. This bill is from the National Assembly by the Chairperson Budget and Appropriation Committee in the National Assembly, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Article 203, subsection 2 of the Constitution guarantees county governments an equitable allocation of a minimum of 15% of all national revenue based on the most recent audited accounts of financial revenue received as approved by the National Assembly. As such, this amount ought to be readily available to county governments as it is already allocated by the Constitution and is readily ascertainable, and ought not to be subjected to the bicameral legislative process between the two houses of Parliament, with the possibility of protracted disagreement between the houses and possible defeat of the Division of Revenue Bill after referral to the mediation process. The main objective of this bill is to put into place interim measures to allow county governments to access their minimum share of revenue already guaranteed and granted to them by Article 206, subsection 2 of the Constitution, to enable them offer services to the public pending enactment of the Division of Revenue Bill in the event the bill is not as enacted before the commencement of the next financial year. This bill, according to the Chair of the National Assembly's Budget and Appropriation Committee, is not in any way and must not be construed as an attempt to replace the Division of Revenue Bill contemplated by the Constitution. The bill, according to the chairperson, merely seeks to put into place interim measures for the financing of county governments in the event of delayed or protracted enactment of the Division of Revenue Bill by freeing the minimum amount already allocated to the county government by the Constitution to flow to the counties. The bill provides for these interim measures to be regularized and incorporated in the Division of Revenue Bill when it is finally passed by Parliament. According to the Chair, the bill seeks to enable the county governments access the guaranteed minimum allocation set aside by Article 206, subsection 2 of the Constitution by empowering the controller of budget to authorize withdrawals from the consolidated fund of this minimum amount already charged on the consolidated fund by Article 203, subsection 2 of the Constitution. In addition, the bill seeks to safeguard the 15% of all national revenue guaranteed for allocation to the county governments from disagreement between the two houses of Parliament and the possible defeat within the framework of Article 113, subsection 4 of the Constitution. Clause 2 of the bill provides to or proposes to insert a new section 191A in the Public Finance Management Act of 2012 to allow the Senate by resolution to divide the guaranteed 15% among the county governments in the event that a Division of Revenue Bill has not been passed by the 10th day of June. This is in line with the Senate's role of approving the basis for allocation of national revenue among county governments every 5 years pursuant to Article 217 of the Constitution. Once the resolution is transmitted to the National Assembly, the Assembly must muster a 2/3 majority to amend the resolution and cannot reject the resolution. This is in line with the constitutional protections according to special bills concerning county governments under Article 110 of the Constitution. The resolution as passed is to constitute Parliament's explicit authority to the control of budget to disburse funds to the county government in time for the commencement of the financial year. The Public Finance Management Amendment Bill from the National Assembly will be read for the first time this afternoon in the Senate. There will be resumption of debate, which was interrupted on Thursday, 19th September 2019, on the County Tourism Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2019. This bill is courtesy of the Honorable Senator Agnes Zani. Should the senators debate it conclusively, then a division will follow. The County Hall of Fame Bill, National Senate Bill, 39 of 2018 is also active in the Senate, and the resumption of debate will take place this afternoon. If you're just joining us, the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Kenneth Makelo Lusaka, has stepped into the chambers. I will hand you over so that you can follow the proceedings live, courtesy of PPU and KBC. Enjoy your viewing.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Okay, order, Senator Baringo. Honorable Senators, the Forum of Parliaments of Member States of the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region is an interparliamentary organization composed of 12 member states, including the Republic of Angola, the Republic of Burundi, the Central African Republic, the Republic of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Republic of Kenya, the Republic of Rwanda, and the Republic of South Africa, Republic of Sudan, the United Republic of Tanzania, the Republic of Uganda, and the Republic of Zambia. The mission of the Forum of Parliaments of this ICGLR, in line with the Pact on Security, Stability, and Development in the Great Lakes region, is to promote, maintain, and strengthen peace and security in the Great Lakes region. The FPLCGLR, in collaboration with the Senate, is holding a 3-day meeting of the Committee on Humanitarian and Social Issues of the Forum in Nairobi from 24th to 26th September 2019. The committee will be discussing Among other issues, Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 3, on healthy lives and promotion of well-being for all at all ages, undertake a review of public health systems and performance assessment in each member state, share best practices and lessons learned in public health management and the role of parliaments in improving health systems in member states of ICGLR. Honorable Senators, this afternoon we are joined by the members of the Committee on Humanitarian and Social Issues who are in Nairobi for this important meeting. They are seated in the Speaker's Gallery. I request each member of the committee to stand when called out so that they are recognized in the Senate tradition. They are Honorable Margaret Nyaguhura, MP, President of the Committee and a Member of Parliament from Rwanda. 2, Honorable Ildefonse Birigindavi, MP, Vice President of the Committee and a Member of Parliament from the Republic of Burundi. Senator Jacqueline Solange Monzalo, MP from the Republic of Congo-Brazzaville. Honorable Christine Ishangoma, MP from the United Republic of Tanzania. The committee is accompanied by the following officials from the FP-SGLR headquarters. Honorable Ambassador Onyango Kakoba, Secretary General of the FP-ICGLR. 2, Ms. Winnie Kamau, Program Manager, Economic Development, Regional Integration and Social Issues. And Mr. Jenny Botha, Personal Assistant to the Secretary General. It is my hope that the recommendations arising from this meeting will go a long way in influencing policies that will benefit from the people of the Great Lakes region. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I welcome the delegation to the Senate and wish them fruitful deliberations. I thank you. Honorable Senators, I also wish to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon of a delegation of members from officers from the Migori County Assembly. Just hold on, okay. Yeah? I was allowing members to come in. The delegation is in the Senate to undertake a benchmarking visit on the operations of committees and specifically with the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation. I request each member of the delegation to stand so that you may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. They are Honorable David Chacha Matthews, Chairman, Honorable Samuel Orima, Vice Chairman, Honorable Kevense Keke, Chief Whip, Honorable Edward Ouma, Honorable Monica Otieno, Honorable Elizabeth Tala, Honorable Ruth Atieno, Honorable Doreen Dande, Honorable Gladys Oyo, Honorable Leonard Lott, Honorable George Owiti, Honorable Graham Kagali, Honorable Samuel Rioba, Honorable Francis Migori, Honorable Christine Bihita, Honorable Patrick Aran, Honorable Judith Gad, Honorable Grace Odhiambo, Honorable Peter Mijungu, Ms. Lydia Oruko Clark, Delegated, Ms. Vencia Awino, Senior Clerk, Mr. Elsen Mutiku, Clerk, Edward Odera, Sergeant, Ms. Angela Nsato Hansard. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I welcome you to the Senate and I wish you well for the remainder of the visit. I thank you. I think I will allow members to contribute to that before I make another communication. Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to join you in welcoming the distinguished colleagues from ICGLR. Mr. Speaker, ICGLR has been a very critical player in conflict resolution in the Great Lakes region. Yours truly here, Mr. Speaker, was deeply involved in the setting up of the Secretariat of ICGLR and in inviting Tanzania then to nominate the first SG Ambassador Mulamula. Mr. Speaker, when there was a terrible flare-up in the Congo in 2011-12, it was ICJLR that brought retired President Obasanjo and President Mukapa, and I joined them in trying to bring normalcy and peace in the Congo. So when I see ICJLR here, Mr. Speaker, I feel very gratified that they are still living to the billing that they were set up for in social justice, peace and security, democratization, and many other issues that bring peace and stability to a region that has had more than its fair share of upheavals in the recent times. So I join you in inviting and welcoming our guests in the gallery and encourage them to be active and proactive in trying to do what you are set up to do. Over 10 years down the line, Mr. Speaker, the Congo is still very restless. Parts of Burundi are still restless. Cabinda is not resolved yet, and other hot points. So I encourage you to fraternize with colleagues here, experienced colleagues, who can help in furthering what you are doing. Equally important, Mr. Speaker, is to welcome the Migori colleagues, in particular my party MCA, Mr. Rioba, whom I saw in the gallery, and remind the House that the Lion Party is everywhere in this country.
Senator Borgisho.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, let me join you in welcoming the two parties in the Speaker's Gallery. Speaker, I happen to be the chair of the Committee on Delegated Legislation, and this morning spent time with my colleagues from Migori. And so I'd like for them to feel welcome, feel at home. Speaker, we believe in the passage that says, as iron sharpens iron, so man sharpens another. So we have shaped each other and continue to do that. There's a long way to go. And I hope that they can make use of the opportunities within the Senate to grow their work in Migori. Thank you very much. And also, Mr. Speaker, you know also that I sit in the executive committee of the Forum of Parliaments of the ICGLR, and today those are my colleagues that you have introduced. They belong to a bureau, and I want to congratulate them. I have had an occasion to be with them in one of their meetings, and Kenya is a great pillar in that organization, as has been said by my senior colleague there, Senator Watangula. Thank you very much, and I feel like, Speaker, you know ICGLR better, so we want to wish them well in their deliberations in the country. Thank you very much.
Senator Ochila Yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to welcome our colleagues from the ICGLR and also my county persons, honorables from Migori County, to this august house. Mr. Speaker, the presence of our international equals is a testimony that the culture of democracy is being deepened in Africa. Scholars who have written about liberal democracy indicate that if you want to know that democracy is with us, see what your neighbors are doing. So their very visit is a testimony that in the continent we are democratizing, we are practicing it, and we are doing well. To my colleagues from Migori County, welcome to the Senate. The Senate is a lovely place. I am happy to report to the Senate that Migori is a very diverse county. It's diverse in culture, diverse in gender, and diverse in many aspects. And that is attested to by the galaxy of representation we have. This is a good place to learn from, and I hope you will be able to visit us more frequently so that you learn from us. We also learn from you, because it's not possible to purport to legislate on your behalf without interacting with you. It's also not possible for you to legislate on behalf of our people without interacting with us. So you're welcome to this institution, and hopefully you will make the best out of it, and will also make the best out of your presence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kasanga Sylvia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to welcome our distinguished guests from the Forum of Parliaments, ICGLR. As Senator Proceedings has said, these are also my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, because I sit in the Committee for Women, Children, and Vulnerable Persons. But by your good office, I was given the opportunity to sit through the Human and Social Issues Committee, where we engaged very deeply. Fellow senators, I can tell you we had very deep engagements in these last 2 days we have sat through. And with the SDG 03, which is on health, we even had a site visit at Kenyatta National Hospital, and I can tell you they did not disappoint us. We were very impressed with what the hospital has done in terms of development and in terms of capacity building, trying to reach out to the other level of hospitals, level 4 and level 3. They're really working hard at capacity building. So I want to welcome our distinguished members of parliament from the region, and I also want to mention to you that I got the opportunity to make a presentation on mental health and what the Senate did and discussed, and the improvements we made on the Mental Health Amendment Bill 2018. And I can tell you one of the resolutions we made was to take mental health regional, because it is an issue of concern in Africa. So members, most welcome to Kenya, most welcome to the Senate of Kenya. And to the members of the County Assembly, Migori, welcome to the Senate. This is a place where we make laws just like you do. We hope that you make that you will have a good experience, and that lawmaking is also very critical from where you sit, that you can demonstrate leadership from the front when you go back to the county. Most welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Finally, Senator Bshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support and add my voice to the welcoming to join you in welcoming the Migori County members of County Assembly, and to say to them that devolution hinges on them, and therefore to encourage them to continue to ensure that devolution continues to strengthen and to serve our people, and to welcome them, and to say that the Senate and the local assembly is one and the same thing, and therefore we'll rely on you for our primary oversight and look forward to working with you closely. Going to the Forum of Parliament, ICGLR, one of the reasons why I asked to say something is because some of the members are actually my personal friends. It's our senator from Rwanda, who is also a member of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, and have met and worked with her very closely. Looking at the people that are sitting in your gallery today, Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy that the Forum of Parliament has such great people that are going to take Africa and the African agenda to the next level, not just through the ICGLR, but also in other forums. So I'd say to them, welcome to Nairobi, welcome to Kenya. It's home for you as well, and there's nowhere in Africa that is really where other Africans are foreigners. So this is not South Africa. You're here, you belong, you're home, welcome home. Thank you very much.
Okay, honorable senators, I have another communication. Honorable senators, as you may recall, at a sitting of the Senate held on 17 September 2019, I reported to the Senate a message from the National Assembly on the Division of National Assembly on the mediated version of the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019. After reading the message, a number of senators rose to points of order seeking clarification on the process leading to the assent of the said bill. The senators included Senator James Orengo, Engineer Mohamed Mohamud, Moses Kajwang, Moses Wetangula, Harugura, Cleophas Malala, Farihia, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Ledama Olekina, Ruben Kibiru, Aaron Cheriot, Samson Ongeri, George Khaniri, Abdullahi Ali, Naomi Shionga, Isaac Mwaura, Abshiro Halake, and Ochilo Ayako. 2, thereafter, I gave an undertaking that I would give a comprehensive report on the activities that took place prior to the assent of the bill. 3, from the points of order raised, the following issues arose. Was there a report of mediation committee on the division of revenue number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019? B, if there was a report of the mediation committee, which one was it? The one tabled in the National Assembly or in the Senate? C, was the division of revenue bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, validly assented to? D, what is the procedure for transmission of bills passed by both houses for assent? Honorable Senators, before I address this issue, I shall give a brief background of the process leading to the assent of the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019. This process commenced with the publication by the National Assembly of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 11 of 2019. The bill set the equitable share of revenue for the county governments at 310 billion, a drop by 4 billion from the allocation of Kenya 314 billion for the financial year 2018-2019. This was passed without amendments by the National Assembly and referred to the Senate for concurrence. The Senate passed the bill with amendments to provide for an allocation of Kenya shillings 335.7 billion to the county governments. The National Assembly rejected the amendments of the Senate and the bill proceeded to mediation pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution. The mediation process collapsed. This led to the Senate to publish a fresh bill, the Division of Revenue Bill, Senate Bill number 13 of 2019, providing for an amount of Kenya shillings 335 billion as the equitable share for the county governments. The Senate passed the bill and referred it to the National Assembly for concurrence. The National Assembly withdrew the bill and did not consider it further. The National Assembly proceeded to publish to publish and pass a new Division of Revenue Bill, the Division of Revenue Bill number 2 of 2019, that set the equitable share of revenue for the county governments at Kenya shillings 316.5 billion. This bill was referred to the Senate, which proceeded to amend the bill by increasing the equitable share to county governments from 316.5 billion to 335.67 billion. B, withdrawal of financing for the leasing of medical equipment, and C, the inclusion of an additional conditional allocation for development partners at the request of the National Treasury. 7 honorable senators will recall that the National Assembly rejected the amendments of the Senate and the bill was referred to a mediation committee. 8, the mediation committee concluded its sittings on 11th September 2019. On the same day, Senator Engineer Mohamud, Vice Chairperson of the mediation committee, tabled the report of the mediation committee on the Division of Revenue Bill in the Senate, while Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, Chairperson of the mediation committee, tabled the same report in the National Assembly. Honorable Senators, going back to the first issue that arose from the points of order, which is whether there was a report of the mediation committee on the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, the record is clear that there was indeed a report of the mediation committee that was signed by both the chairperson and the vice chairperson of the mediation committee, and that was tabled in both houses on the same day, 11 September 2019. The report was tabled in both houses. The report as tabled in both houses included a version of the bill as agreed by the mediation committee. 10 honorable senators, the second issue that arose from the points of order is that, which is the report of the mediation committee? The one tabled in the National Assembly or that was tabled in the Senate? 11, the Hansard record of the Senate indicates that on 11 September 2019, while moving the motion on the adoption of the report on the mediation committee on the bill, the chairperson of the Senate Standing Committee on Budget and Finance stated that the bill, as adopted by the mediation committee, would come into force upon publication in the Gazette. The chairperson, however, alluded to the fact that there had been an attempt that morning from some quarters to provide for a retrospective commencement date in that bill, so that the bill would commence on 1st July 2019. 12, on account of the urgency in the Division of Revenue process, the Senate proceeded to debate and adopted the motion on the report of the mediation committee on the same day. 13th, in the case of the National Assembly, the proceedings of the National Assembly of 12 September 2019, which was later transmitted to the Senate, indicate that before adoption of the mediation committee report, a communication from the chair was issued on the commencement date of the Division of Revenue, Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, as adopted by the mediation committee. The communication indicated the bill, as contained in the report of the mediation committee tabled in both houses, had a slight variance concerning clause number 1 of the bill as agreed upon by the mediation committee. The communication stated that while clause 1 of the bill as tabled in both houses provided the bill would come into force upon publication in the Gazette, the report had been altered, and that the chairperson of the mediation committee had therefore quashed the alteration in the report tabled in the National Assembly by way of handwritten text authenticated by his signature. The text of the bill as adopted by the National Assembly therefore provided for a commencement date from 1st July 2019. Honorable Senators, having heard the presentation by Senator Mohamud and further having read the proceedings of the report of the mediated committee, I found myself in an unprecedented situation where a mediation report is said to have been adopted by a committee, signed by the chairperson and the vice chairperson of the committee, tabled in both houses on the same day and in the same form, but eventually adopted in a different form in each house. I therefore took the extraordinary step of calling for the audio recording and transcription of the proceedings of the meetings of the mediation committee together with extracts of the relevant minutes. Having listened carefully to the audio recording and read the transcription and minutes thereof, I found that the proceedings of the committee are, on the matter of commencement date, inconclusive on the decision reached by the committee and the intentions of the committee thereon. 16, we therefore find ourselves in a situation where the report of the mediation committee, as adopted by the mediation committee, was considered and adopted by the National Assembly in a form otherwise than that which was adopted by the committee and by the Senate in the form in which it was adopted by the mediation committee. Procedurally, should an issue arise on a report of a mediation committee or a joint committee during consideration in either of the house in which the matter arises should remand the matter back to the mediation committee or a joint committee for reconsideration. The rationale being that the report for consideration and adoption by the House must be tabled, considered, and adopted in the same form. There is no opportunity for amendment or any form of correction of a report of a mediation committee or a joint committee once tabled in the House. Honorable Senators, as the procedure for transmission of bills, as I have indicated earlier, having passed the version of the Division of Revenue number 2, Bill National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2019. Order, Senator Orengo. The National Assembly proceeded to send the Senate a message which I subsequently reported to the Senate on 17 September 2019. On the same day, 17 September 2019, the bill as passed by the National Assembly was presented for assent and was duly assented to. 18, Honorable Senators, the procedure for referring bills for presidential assent is clearly stated out under Article 110(5) and 113 of the Constitution. Article 110(5) of the Constitution deals with the procedure when both houses pass the bill in the same form and provides that if both houses, and I quote, pass the bill in the same form, the Speaker of the House in which the bill originated shall within 7 days refer the bill to the President for assent. Article 113 of the Constitution provides for the procedure for referring a version of the bill proposed by a mediation committee for presidential assent, and it states, and I quote, if both houses approve the version of the bill proposed by the mediation committee, the Speaker of the National Assembly shall refer the bill to the President within 7 days for assent. 20, the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 59 of 2019, being a version of a bill proposed by a mediation committee, would fall within the procedure envisaged under Article 113(3) of the Constitution and would therefore be a bill to be presented for assent by the Speaker of the National Assembly. As a matter of practice, both speakers and clerks have usually certified a bill which has been considered by both houses. This, however, is not an obligation under any law, but is good practice that has developed. 22 Honorable Senators, so as to cure this procedural and legal lacuna, the Senate passed the Determination of Nature of Bills Procedure Bill, Senate Bill number 30 of 2018, which provides for a certificate of concurrence where the speakers and clerks of both houses certify that the bill is a true copy of the version passed by either house or that the speakers concurred where it is a bill that does not concern county governments. The bill is now pending in the National Assembly. When passed, the bill will provide clarity and address this matter. In relation to the issue arising from the point of order as to whether the Division of Revenue number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019 was validly assented to, in my view, this cannot be answered conclusively at this point. A determination of validity of any law passed by Parliament cannot fall on one house or the Speaker of one house. It is for this reason that the Senate is in High Court petition number 284 of 2019, seeking the court's determination on the constitutionality of a number of acts that, in the opinion of the Senate, were passed unconstitutionally. Pronouncing myself on this matter may therefore prejudice the fair determination of the court matter. 24, in conclusion, it is important to note that the protracted process of enactment of the Division of Revenue Act 2019 that the country has witnessed has come at a time when the country is engaging in a robust discourse on constitutional reforms. It is my view that these reforms should include a review of the Constitution to address the challenges relating to the legislative mandate and processes of both houses so far identified in the process of implementing the Constitution. I thank you.
Next order. I now ask you to switch to the supplementary order, which is
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 25th of September 2019, the report of the Standing Committee of Finance and Budget of the County Government's cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2019-2020. Thank you, Speaker.
Next order. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Wednesday, 28th September 2019. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Machakos County Bursary Fund of the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Machakos County Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th June 2017. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Trans Nzoia County Public Service Board for the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Makueni County Assembly Car Mortgage Loan Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Makueni County Sand Conservation and Utilization Authority for the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of County Government of Kisumu Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Homa Bay County Education Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Kisumu County Government Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th June 2016. And report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Turkana County Education and Skills Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg to give notice of the following motion, that pursuant to Section 17 of the Public Finance Management Act, Standing Order 183 of the Senate, this House adopts the report of the Standing Committee of Finance and Budget on the County Government Cash Disbursement Schedule for the year 2019-2020, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 25th of September 2019. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator George Khaniri.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I rise pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 47-1. And Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a statement on an issue of general topical concern, namely the death of Ms. Annette Kabarika at Vihiga County Referral Hospital on Monday, the 16th September 2019, as a result of medical negligence. Honorable Speaker, before I proceed further, I take this opportunity to pass condolences on my own behalf, on behalf of my family, and on behalf of the people of Vihiga who I represent in this House, to the family of Annette Kabarika. Annette was a young, lively lady, 22 years of age, from Gimaragwa village, Hamisi sub-county of Vihiga County. Mr. Speaker, I have watched painfully the video of this young lady writhing in pain on the floor of a private hospital, pleading to be taken to a government hospital where she believed she would get better service. I have also watched the mother on the national television describing how she spent 30 agonizing hours with a daughter in Vihiga County Referral Hospital, waiting for medics to attend to her until she passed on. The treatment the lady got from the two hospitals highlight how inhuman our healthcare providers have become. Mr. Speaker, Article 43, paragraph 1A of the Constitution clearly stipulates that every person has the right to the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to health care services, including reproductive health care. Further, Mr. Speaker, Article 43(2) states that a person shall not be denied emergency medical treatment. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the provisions in the Constitution that I really highlighted when we were campaigning for this Constitution. And everywhere I went and told Kenyans that the new Constitution has a provision that no one can deny you emergency medical attention, I was applauded, even in funerals, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a person shall not be denied medical treatment. It is undisputed that health is a fundamental human right that all Kenyans are entitled to. I condemn all the medical practitioners and healthcare facilities that denied Annette medical care. She did not deserve to die in the circumstances that she did, Mr. Speaker. It is a shame and indictment to the whole Department of Health in Vihiga County and an executive that is working overtime to absolve the hospital of any blame through tweets in the social media from the governor's official handle and the director of communication, and the half-truths from both the county executive committee member for health and his chief officer. Honorable Speaker, according to the Vihiga County Executive Committee member for health services, Ms. Annette Kabarika was admitted in the hospital at 9 p.m. on the Saturday, 14th of September, 2019, and succumbed to her injuries at 3 a.m. on Monday, 16th September 2019. There is no information on the real cause of death, even from the CECM for health. Mr. Speaker, the mother of the deceased lady has confessed that hospital attendants at the Vihiga County Referral Hospital demanded 4,500 Kenyan shillings before they could perform a CT scan on her, money she did not have at the instance. The mother managed to raise Kenya shillings 2,000, which she offered the attendants, but they flatly refused to neither take the money nor offer Annette medical attention, demanding for the full amount to be paid. All this while her daughter was in pain, suffering inside a government hospital, and there was nothing she could do to alleviate her daughter's suffering. Mr. Speaker, such incidences distort the intention of devolution. We are all aware of the 38 billion Kenya shillings medical equipment service, which provided Vihiga County Referral Hospital with a CT scan, among other medical equipment. The Kenya government has also partnered with the Cuban government to provide specialists in all the 47 counties. As a country, we have prioritized universal health care as one of the pillars of development. In the financial year 2018-2019, Mr. Speaker, the Vihiga County Department of Health received a total of 1,515,063,470, the highest allocation to a department in the county. In addition, the county also recently hired medical staff. With all this investment, how can one die begging for medical care? Mr. Speaker, there are numerous such cases that happen not only in Vihiga County, but also throughout the country. The practice where doctors have private medical clinics next to the government hospitals is widespread. While the doctors will always be unavailable in their primary duty stations, patients are always referred and treated in these clinics with the same doctors at outrageous cost. This is wrong, Mr. Speaker. It is inhuman and must be condemned in the strongest terms possible. The Ministry of Health should take action. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, nobody ever invites injury, sickness, and disease. People are suffering in homes, yet there are government hospitals that have been turned to conduits of siphoning public funds. People are dying from common illnesses such as malaria, pneumonia, and other treatable illnesses because they cannot afford treatment at government hospitals. In fact, government hospitals subject patients to more suffering than relief from their health complaints, and as a result, great percentage of the population prefer herbal medicine. In light of these plans, plans to roll out universal health care across the country is dead at arrival, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is time hospitals and medics are held responsible for medical negligence, not only through reprimands, suspensions, and sackings, but also through prosecution in a court of law. What happened to the late Annette in the two hospitals is murder in broad daylight, and the criminal justice system must be involved in bringing all culprits to justice. The practice of demanding payment before offering emergency medical services is both inhuman and unlawful against the Constitution. The governor of Vihiga County should be informed that the Senate, which fights to protect devolution by ensuring adequate and timely funding to the counties, is angry, and I'm angry, Kenyans are angry, and the least he can do is to institute disciplinary action on concerned staff. Truly, these are not caregivers as it would be expected of a hospital. This young girl did not deserve to die the way she did in a county referral hospital. It is sad, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move.
Senator Moses Wetangula.
Mr. Speaker, I support the sentiments of the distinguished senator for Vihiga. Mr. Speaker, the case of Annette and her demise is an indictment to the health institutions of this country. This is one case that has been highlighted because she had a vigilant mother who spoke out on her plight. How many others like Annette are dying in those far-flung areas where there's neither media nor courage to speak out? In this country, Mr. Speaker, the sickest patient are the health institutions. People go to health institutions walking and come out in gaskets simply because of mismanagement at the levels of primary health care and corruption and inability to send enough resources to health facilities from the national government. Mr. Speaker, nurses and Medicare personnel world over, even in war situations, they are protected because they are protectors of lives. And to have a case where somebody goes to a health facility like Annette and is confined to an array of negligent discourses until they lose their lives is something this House must condemn. In fact, Mr. Speaker, and I see the Vice Chair of the Committee of Health here, this is such a matter that the Committee of Health of this House should summon the CEC Health of Vihiga and all his senior officers to appear before the committee and explain in very clear terms why such negligence can be meted on Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans voted for the Constitution 2010 to bring services closer through devolution. It's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that this has happened. I urge Governor Otichilo, who distinguished himself when he served as a member of parliament for 2 terms, as a hardworking, honest man, to speak to this, investigate, and bring culprits to book. Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to your attention as I finish that when I say that the committee should investigate, I could see my distinguished friend, the Vice Chair, gesturing with his hands like this, whatever that means, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I want to urge you, Mr. Speaker, that this is an unfortunate case, that this House must take a very firm position, and you direct that the Committee of Health steps in immediately so that we can save other Annettes in Wajir, in Uasin Gishu, in Baringo, in Kericho, everywhere. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Onesimus Murkomen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me join Senator Haniri to condole with the family of Annette and because of this very unfortunate incident. And I agree with Senator Wetangula that Annette is not just one, it's not the one in Vihiga. There are many Annettes across the country because of medical negligence. Mr. Speaker, emergency medical care, Mr. Speaker, is something that found its way even up to our Constitution. And it is mandatory that, when people are taken to any hospital, not just private, even public hospital, before you can discuss about payment, before even you can think about payment, by the time you are asking even about how much, Mr. Speaker, should be paid for that patient, the patient must already be alive. Mr. Speaker, must have been attended to. That is why there is a door written emergency and accidents, Mr. Speaker, in hospitals, because that is where emergency is done. That is why the Constitution says it is a right. You cannot deny anyone. Stabilize the patient first, then we can discuss further treatment, Mr. Speaker, if it requires medicine, requires more money. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that we must get to the bottom of it. Mr. Speaker, it's also important that we have our MCS, not from Vihiga, from Migori County. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that cases like the one for Annette, Mr. Speaker, are not being arrested at a local level because the county assemblies have become departments of the county executive. Because, Mr. Speaker, as we speak at the moment, the county assembly of Vihiga should have already been doing something so that when their senator is reporting this issue to this House, Mr. Speaker, it is at a secondary level or an appeal level where the county assembly will say, we've done everything possible. Mr. Speaker, if a county assembly cannot be bold enough to summon CC Health, to summon the superintendent in charge of that hospital, to call for suspension, to name and ask for suspension of those individuals, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, what's the point of us saying that we have an oversight institution at the local level? So the responsibility per se is in the governor and his county executive. He must do his job. But, Mr. Speaker, in the absence, in the failure of the county executive, of the governor and the CCs and the staff and the medical provider, Mr. Speaker, such issues must be arrested at the local level. And we want to see, Mr. Speaker, before a health committee of this House goes to Viga, we want to see, Mr. Speaker, that the health committee of the County Assembly of Viga is reported from the local level, Mr. Speaker, that they are providing local solutions. Otherwise, what is the point of saying that we have oversight at a local level? Number two, Mr. Speaker, if it is true that CCs are disrespectful to county assemblies, or perhaps county assemblies are unable to do their job, Senator George Kaniri should also, Mr. Speaker, bring another request to your office for capacity building for oversight purposes at that local level, Mr. Speaker, because these things should be sorted. I am happy that Senator Sonko, Governor Sonko is trying to sort the issue that we are going to discuss later. Mr. Speaker, but counties must operate like governments. I see a lot of blame being shifted back to national level on issues that are purely devolved. You know, things like agriculture, things like health, Mr. Speaker, instead of those things being solved at the local level, already blame is just being returned back to national level. In fact, citizens are losing faith in their local governments because, Mr. Speaker, they find like, they are devolved, they are local government as the Constitution says, but solutions are not being provided. So I believe, Mr. Speaker, that should be done. And Senator George Kaniri be on this issue until someone is arrested and found culpable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, something also should be done to this House on enforcement of emergency health care in all the counties across the country. And perhaps it is the time, like Senator of Makueni, Junior Senator, okay, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Mr. Speaker, said yesterday that, Mr. Speaker, we might also public, the members of public to take up class action against these kind of hospitals, whether they are private or public. And we hope that our courts will be bold enough to take action. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, the rest, please try to keep it short. Senator James Agri-Orengo, Leader of Minority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and also join Senator Haniri, distinguished senator from Vihiga, in condoling with the family. Mr. Speaker, the Article 26 of the Constitution protects the right to life. And that article states that no one should be deprived of his or her life intentionally. Those are the words of the Constitution. Where somebody goes to a medical institution hoping to get care and attention and loses life because he was not given proper medical attention, that in effect is denying the right to life. And Mr. Speaker, the medical profession is a noble profession because it is their duty to preserve life. And Mr. Speaker, there is a growing practice in many private medical institutions that they admit patients, but after admitting patients, if money is not paid at any point where treatment is being delivered, they stop to give that person treatment, and instead of releasing the patient to go to another medical institution, the patients are held on account of medical bills which are not being paid. I think, Mr. Speaker, we should have something firmly in the law, and I invite Senator Haniri in terms of the articles of the Constitution which have been cited, that we should have in the in the Health Act, some provision to the effect that medical institutions, their primary duty once patients have been admitted into their hospitals or medical institutions should be treated because it is part of their calling and demands of that profession. Making money or making profit is an additional objective which is outside the primary objective of protecting life and health of individuals. And therefore, this thing which has happened in Vihiga calls for attention and also calls for putting laws in place that will ensure that medical institutions, particularly the private medical institutions, that they do not make the pursuit of profit as the major objective of the medical profession. In fact, medical institutions now are becoming like some of the churches where, starting a church is no longer an objective of trying to take people to heaven, but is an objective of trying to make money on earth. In fact, sometimes I think I went to the wrong profession. I should have started a church, and today I probably would have been called a cardinal or a pope, and be living in a very palatial home. And all that I need to do is to pray for Senator Murkomen or perform a miracle that when he plays football, he shall not experience any injuries or any harm. So, Mr. Speaker, in equal measure, once somebody decides to run a medical institution, a private medical institution, it should be under duty to first and foremost look for those who are admitted into those medical institutions. And that also goes to our public hospitals, particularly the county ones now that we have many county hospitals of various levels and dispensaries. I think the health committee should now begin to be more intensive in carrying out oversight over how counties are running these medical institutions, hospitals and dispensaries alike. And as Senator Haniri has pointed out, Vihiga has to show us where those hundreds of millions of shillings are going in terms of taking care of citizens who live in that particular county. And therefore, I commiserate with Senator Haniri and hope that the Committee on Health will take up this matter promptly and come back with answers to the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Adan Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to give my condolences to the Anita lady from Vihiga who lost her life as a result of negligence. Mr. Speaker, I think we have discussed about negligence in hospital severally, even in the last Senate. I remember we discussed, there is a motion brought to this House by one of the members where we agreed that the standard should be actually taken back to the national government. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have completely lost in terms of standard at our county level. Mr. Speaker, I think the health committee should be able to summon the county government of Vihiga to make sure that they have interrogated what really happened to this young girl. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, really the situation at our county levels is pathetic. Over the weekend, I was going around the hospitals in my county, and one of the actually appalling situations that I found in a place called Oldonyiro is where mothers who are actually about to deliver are put on motorbike, taken to the hospital in a labor pain. A hospital or maybe a county that is given UHC support. Mr. Speaker, this is really terrible. And I hope the health committee should be able to do something about it, Mr. Speaker. The hospitals are so dirty. The standards are not kept. Nobody even cares what is happening in most of those hospitals, Mr. Speaker. I hope maybe at some stage we should be able to look for that particular motion and see how we can be able to refer back the function of standards to the national government. Unless we do that, then we cannot be able to save the lives of our people. The reason for devolution is to take service closer to the people. But unfortunately, Kenyans are not getting that service at that level. Mr. Speaker, I hope Health Committee will be able to get to the bottom of this matter and ensure that justice is given to the family that have lost their dear one as a result of negligence in Vihiga. I thank you.
I think there's a lot of interest and we have quite a heavy program. I would want to seek for your intelligence that we get to the next statement, which is also of equal interest. Senator Omanga. What's your point of order, Senator Khaniri?
Mr. Speaker, under the provisions of the standing order that I brought this statement, it is your discretion to decide whether you want to commit the statement to a committee or not. Mr. Speaker, given the weighty of the matter, Mr. Speaker, I would request that you direct that the Committee on Health investigates this matter and reports back to this House.
I agree with you, the Committee of Health. This is another opportunity for you to redeem yourselves by doing a good job on behalf of this House and bring a report within 2 weeks. Next point, what's your point of order, Senator Junior?
Just by way of assisting Senator Haneri, as we wait for the Committee of Health to get to the bottom of this, the circumstances leading to this death of this Annette might lead to an inquiry. And I think Senator Haneri is best advised to ensure that a good post-mortem is done before the burial. Thank you.
Okay, next statement, Senator Millicent Omanga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 48-1, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the fatalities caused by, Mr. Speaker, there's disruption from the Majority Leader. I'm not able to.
Majority Leader, Senator Omanga wants total attention.
Caused by the collapse of a classroom at Precious Talent School in Dagoretti South, Nairobi City County, which led to the death of at least 7 pupils and the injury to over 60 others. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state reasons for the lack of public schools in the area, which has a population of almost 35,000 Kenyans, where else the Basic Education Act grants right to free and compulsory primary education. 2, to explain the legal and disciplinary measures, if any, the national government will take against the persons responsible for constructing an unapproved building that placed the people's life in danger. 3, outline the measures the national government is putting in place to ensure that set infrastructure standards are adhered to by the construction companies and enforced by the National Construction Authority in order to curb the recurrence of such incidences. And 4, state the plans the national government has of helping with the burial arrangements of the people who lost their lives, as well as any form of compensation to the families of those deceased and injured. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would want to pass my condolences to the families who lost their little angels in Precious Talent School. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say I was there the day before yesterday, and that's why the media decided to brand us that we are disaster celebrities, which was so unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, because as a leader, if I wouldn't have gone there, then they would have even blamed us more. I think also the media are not playing their part, actually using that situation to demonize us and making us look bad in the eyes of the public. Mr. Speaker, that I was at that site, and the situation, Mr. Speaker, is pathetic. And I would want to say, Mr. Speaker, my heart is bleeding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Margaret Kamara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. First, I would like to thank Senator Manga for bringing this statement to the House. Secondly, I want to join her in sending condolences to the families that have lost their young angels. It was a very, very unfortunate situation, Mr. Speaker. But as we mourn those who have passed because of this situation, we ask ourselves, how many other classrooms are in a situation that we could lose more children tomorrow, next month, or in the near future? Mr. Speaker, in fact, before this incident took place, there was something in the press about the school in Olkalau, where there were cracks all over, and parents were already expressing concern. Mr. Speaker, I am a member of the committee that is going to be looking at this, and I want to assure the senator that we are really going to look at it seriously, because loss of children out of carelessness is worse than losing a child out of sickness. And we really must look at deterrent measures that should stop, one, the kind of development that took place in this school, because it looked like a school, the way we saw in the media, it looked like a school that did not have a foundation, a building that did not even have a foundation. We listened to the engineers that visited the site, and everything was sounding really pathetic. But you ask yourself, at what time are inspections, in fact, done in these schools? Mr. Speaker, we have heard that there is a bill that is coming to this House from the National Assembly on the Build Environment Bill. But Build Environment is less than what we are looking for. We are looking for inspection, regular inspection of classrooms, first inspection at the building stage, and we hope, as we look at this, and as we look for answers for what the senator has asked, that we'll be able to unearth whether actually the building was approved, whether actually the building had any engineers around them, or they were just being built by builders. Because there are many questions that need to be answered, not just for this case, but for for other schools, including the Olkalau one, and many other schools that some of us have seen in our own counties that are starting to crack. Mr. Speaker, I support this statement, and once more join my sister, Senator Manga, in sending my deepest condolences and the condolence from the people of Uasin Gishu to the parents who have lost their children. Thank you.
So of those, I'll give an opportunity, please. 2 minutes, Senator Moi Gideon Kipsiele.
I too would like to give my condolences to those who lost their lives, to their family and friends and loved ones. This is totally unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. Exactly like what happened in Vihiga, which I would like to say too poorly to the Senator Haniri and his people. It is despicable, unacceptable that this could happen in this day and age. As in Vihiga, Mr. Speaker, one will ask oneself, what happened to the Hippocratic Oath? When somebody comes suffering to hospital and they are refused treatment, it is diabolical. And I'm so happy that now that hopefully you're going to direct it to the committee who are going to put and give the full force of the law against those. And what happened in Nairobi, Poleni Sana, and I think it's important that we take an audit on all the schools to make sure that this does not occur again. And I do hope again that the committee, which will be in charge of this, will take this job extremely seriously as they usually do and get to the bottom of this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator George Khaniri.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Mr. Speaker, this is another very, very sad story. Let me, at the very outset, take this opportunity on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Vihiga, send my condolences to the families that were affected by this terrible tragedy. Mr. Speaker, here is a case where innocent children seeking for education, innocent parents trying to send their children to school to get education, are caught in this kind of tragedy, where greedy investors, Mr. Speaker, we do not condemn investment in education. I mean, they are doing a good job, the investors in education sector. But as much as we encourage them to invest, they must put safety first, Mr. Speaker. To me, I think this is just a case of carelessness and greed by the investor, because he was on TV, the investor himself, saying that he was overwhelmed. He had put up good structures. The school was, the enrollment went high, and he had to put other structures on top of the existing structures just to accommodate the new admissions. Mr. Speaker, this is greed. Why can't he just take what he can accommodate? Mr. Speaker, it is a very, very unfortunate incident. We want to encourage the Ministry of Education, particularly the inspection department, to ensure that they inspect all these schools so that this does not recur. I send my condolences to the affected families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator wako Naomi Gilo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this very important statement. I also want to congratulate Senator Omanga for bringing this to us, as I also condone with the families. I also want to send my condolences to the Vihiga family. I wanted to say something on that, but I didn't manage. So our condolences, our prayers are with you people, and it is our prayer that no more Kenya will lose life in a careless way. Mr. Speaker, when that incident happened, many of us were touched, and especially those who have children or grandchildren going to schools. It is unfortunate that we lost 7 children in school, and it must be very devastating to the parents, because in the morning, they woke up very early in the morning, they prepared their children and sent them to school. But unfortunately, by midday or even by around mid-morning, those children were no more. So it is hard for parents, for the school management, and for the other children even to cope with what has happened. Mr. Speaker, the inspection of every school, the Ministry of Education needs to take this seriously. And this House, the senators, honorable members, have debated on matters that concerns education ministry and education of our children severally. But sometimes when I look at the way things are going, I feel the Ministry of Education is not giving enough attention. So, Mr. Speaker, it is good for us to urge the ministry to do inspection and take proper audit for all the schools so that we know whether we have facilities that are conducive enough for the children to be in. It's unfortunate again, Kenyans have become money lovers. It is the greed that is pushing us.
You manage your time, I said 2 minutes because of the interests. Senator Ochila Yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to join fellow senators in condoling with the affected families for the loss that we have suffered as a nation, and they have also suffered individually as Kenyans. Now, Mr. Speaker, this accident is a wake-up call to us that our early warning system is failing. it is a wake-up call to us that we do not have disaster mitigation and management programs. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that as we look for this solution, we must find out what happened to the inspection department of the Ministry of Education. This disaster is an indication that all over the counties, all over constituencies, and all over wards, we are expecting to be visited by this kind of failure if we do not activate our early warning systems. So the responsible inspection unit should also be held to account for not being vigilant, for not being watchful, and allowing this kind of potential danger to continue unabated. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Argura Godana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to join my colleagues in condoling the families who lost their children in the unfortunate incident. Mr. Speaker, public institutions, even if they are privately run, like a school, they must be inspected by the relevant government department, the Ministry of Education. And when they are, because that's a school which is I think has been doing exams for class 8, when they are approving the school to do the exams, they must also have checked the kind of infrastructure that school has, under what condition are those children learning. Even if the Ministry of Education doesn't have engineers, Ministry of Public Works has engineers, and they're the ones who are supposed to be doing that. As an engineer, I'm even surprised how you could have that kind of a structure in Nairobi, because if it's an iron sheet timber structure, it will just be the normal structure without having any story. But if somebody woke up and said he's going to do a story, the best thing will, the right thing must have been to actually change that from what it was to a proper reinforced concrete structure. But that person did that, and from the way the school is structured, if the upper classes were there, then the exams must have also been done in that structure sometimes, and the Ministry of Education officers must not have been taking the work seriously. Today I'm hearing that the minister had gone round and he has closed down a school with that kind of structure in Kibera area, which means there are many of them around. So mine is to urge the department, the committee to take it seriously with the State Department of Education to make sure that all the schools' structures are audited, to make sure that they're in a position to do what they're supposed to do.
Senator Ongeri Samson.
Mr. Speaker, as a former Minister for Education, it's a pathetic situation. There was a time when we used to have chief inspector of schools. They not only inspect the curriculum, they also inspected about the teachers and the quality of buildings around, including toilets. A situation happening of this nature, using a chicken wire mesh to be able to compound and get a story building, is just condemning our children to massacre and death. And it was extremely painful, Mr. Speaker, to watch parents in agony and in pain, such young and tender age of children who had just gone there in pursuit of knowledge. They didn't go to seek death there, they went to seek knowledge. And in the process, because of the carelessness and because of the corruption that has pervaded this nation, and because of the want for money, just appetite for money, they couldn't care less what happened to the building as long as they had their money in the pocket. So the end result is a total loss to the community, to the families, and to this nation of Kenya, and depriving this nation of Kenya children who might have been either Speaker today in this Senate, or President of this Republic of Kenya, or indeed a very prominent teacher or doctor, whatever the profession is. Therefore, whatever measures are taken, I think we should go in a much more deliberate and cautious manner, being able to bring to book those who have been able to cause this damage and death in these children, and at the same time, putting a caveat on any other schools that may have gone along this path, because we have already seen the exposure our children have had in this content. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I don't think this is a report we want to take lightly, because in the glare, in a flash of a second, you've lost 7 children. I beg to support.
Senator Cheriot Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to add my voice to that of the rest of my colleagues in condoling the families of these young kids. And Mr. Speaker, as we speak, something troubles me, that the proprietor of this institution continues to walk free on the streets of this city, despite the fact that even very obvious interaction with the kind of structure that these kids were learning in. You don't have to be an engineer or a specialist to see that this house was poorly constructed, and therefore, by this time, he should already have been charged at least with the murder of those young children, together with the people that gave him the approvals, the Ministry of Education officials that were supposed to check on the quality controls. What has happened, Mr. Speaker, to that particular issue? And finally, Mr. Speaker, we know that the City Inspectorate Department have presence in almost every part of this city, Mr. Speaker, that even when you're putting up a structure as small as a hanging line for clothes, they will show up immediately and ask for approvals from you. How was this gentleman able to put up this kind of a structure? It will make more sense if, as a House, Mr. Speaker, we stopped naming the people who allow this kind of illegalities to take place by the departments or the institutions that work for. Let us be told that the person in charge of City Inspectorate Department in that particular region is one gentleman called XYZ. The person in charge of quality control for that sub-county of education who looked the other way or was paid to avoid keeping the checks and balances in that institution is Mr. So-and-so, so that the history, the records of this House, Mr. Speaker, will reflect the kind of people that are causing us all the troubles in this country. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, if we just continue to referring them by the institutions where they work.
Senator Nderitu John.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Nataka kujumuika na wenzangu kutuma risala zangu za rambirambi na watu wa Laikipia kwa jamaa ambao walipoteza watoto wao pale shuleni. Na hili ni jambo la kuvunja moyo sana Bwana Spika, kwa kuwa katika idara yetu ya elimu kuna kile kitengo cha ukaguzi ambacho kinapaswa kuwa kimepitia pale na kimekagua shule vile ilivyo, lakini hakuna chochote inaonekana walichokuwa wamefanya, kwa sababu watoto, shule ilibomoka, watoto wakawa wengine wamepata majeruhi na wengine tayari wameshapoteza maisha yao. Na jambo ambalo linavunja moyo sana Bwana Spika ni ya kwamba ukiangalia yule mwegezaji, hakuna hatua yoyote iliyochukuliwa dhidi yake. Yeye anaonekana ni mtu mlafi, na kazi yake mimi nilipomuona yeye anatabasamu nikana kwamba hakuna jambo lote lililotendeka. Kwa hivyo jambo ambalo serikali inapaswa kufanya kwanza ni kumchukulia mtu kama yule hatua kali, ndio yawe funzo kwa mtu yeyote ambaye ni mwegezaji, ambaye kazi yake ni kutaka kuegeza na kutumia nguvu zile zake za hela kuweza kuwapotosha Wakenya na kuweka katika hali hatari ya maisha yao. Bwana Spika, ukiangalia utaona ya kwamba hii hali imeletwa na wale ambao wanahusika, kwa kuwa wale ni wafisadi ambao badala ya kufanya kazi ambayo wamepewa kuifanya kwa uwerendi na uangalifu, wao wenyewe wanatumia hela kuweza kuwamaliza Wakenya ambayo ni hohehahe. Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Senator Mathayo Stewart.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kwanza kuna kile kitu kinaitwa utovu wa nidhamu, kwa sababu hawa mabepari wa ufisadi, haswa tamaa ya pesa iliyoingia zaidi katika huyu mjenzi ama mwenye jengo hili, ni jambo la kusikitisha katika kuona katika Kenya, kwa sababu utaona ya kwamba yeye alikimbilia pesa kuliko kuona maisha ya watoto wetu tunaompelekea ili waweze kujifundisha na kusoma na kupita mitihani na kuendelea. Bwana Spika, sasa imekuwa tunapelekea watoto ili watoto wetu waweze kufa ndani ya vilasi. Hili ni jambo la kukemea zaidi, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, vile vile wale watu waliojenga na wale waliopitisha hizi karatasi za kwamba wameidhinisha skuli kama hiyo iko sawa na watu wanaweza kuingia katika hao mashule ama madarasa ili waweze kusoma wanafunzi, ni jambo muhimu kuona ya kwamba hatua itachukuliwa na serikali. Watu hawa waliojenga, watu hawa waliopitisha, pamoja na yule mwenye hiyo skuli. Manake kisheria tutaona ya kwamba yule aliye na nyumba ama yule mwenye jengo ndio atachukua jukumu la hatari yoyote itakayotokea pale kwa maisha ya wanadamu. Kwa hiyo tunasema ya kwamba watoto wetu ni muhimu katika nyumba zetu, watoto wetu ni muhimu katika maendeleo ya taifa letu la Kenya. Ikiwa watoto wetu watawachiliwa kiholela, Bwana Spika, ni jambo la kusikitisha kuona kwamba sasa kila mtu, hizi skuli zinaendelea kujengwa kila mahali katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, na hii inahatarisha maisha ya watoto wetu. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, inahitajika, nikiwa ninaunga mkono, ni kwamba hatua ichukuliwe ya kupitisha jambo ambalo ama mjengo ambao utaruhusiwa ili watoto wetu waweze kuketi ndani ya madarasa tukijua wako salama salmini na waweze kusoma ili warudi wawe viongozi wa siku za usoni. Asante Bwana Spika.
Dr. Ali. Senator Dr. Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support the statement as well. I'll just say one thing. We don't have to repeat ourselves. The problem with Kenya is greed and corruption. I think people should just be killed, be taken to Uhuru Park, as we said several times, and be killed. Because if we don't do this the Chinese way, these things will never stop. Corruption will not stop in this country. And with this greed, we are going to kill all our children, and we'll kill ourselves as well. People just want to look for money whichever way they get, by creating whatever sort of funny businesses they can. How can a school with small children be allowed to be built like that? How can hospitals be allowed to operate when they kill their patients? Mr. Speaker, sir, I think this country is in a big problem, and the system has to change. The government of the day has to do whatever it needs to do to make sure that action is taken on these specific issues, and otherwise Kenyans are going to rot in hell, all of them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Kabaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving this opportunity. I wish also to join my colleagues in passing my condolences to the families of the deceased children who passed on unfortunate circumstances, which has now become a kind of a ping-pong game of blame. Mr. Speaker, sir, you do appreciate professionalism is lacking mostly in most areas of our cadres in society. Without throwing a blame to the engineers, but even other professionals have issues. But to trim the matter down to the issue here, those persons who have the engineers and the architects, the county hall, who have approved such drawings, they should face murder charges similar to the Solai Dam issue. Again, number two, they should not be granted bail. We do know bail is a constitutional right, but it's the high time the courts take cognizance of certain considerations before issuing express bails. Mr. Speaker, it is straight law and is good, Mr. Speaker, you are a lawyer, professor of law. You do appreciate that this is a tort of negligence, which is actionable per se, and all the joint tortfeasors are liable in damages. But now, Mr. Speaker, the irony of the law of insurance in relation to compensations of minors of the damages is too small in relation to the, simply because of the notion of the law that the future of minors is not certain. That is the common law position.
Now that you are talking about common law, I'll give you an additional 1 minute.
Yes. So indeed, Mr. Speaker, sir, indeed, also while computing claims of this nature for the deceased person, the so-called multiplier and accelerator factor effect, Motula Kilonzo, who bears my witness, is very insignificant, such that this is a high time we need also to change the law in relation to that, without necessarily following the common law position. This parliament or this Senate has powers to do that. Thank you.
Order. Thank you, Senator Kabaka. Order, members. Indeed, this is a matter that touches on the country generally. We lost 7 children, and that's not a small number. Even one is big enough a number. For that reason, I direct the Committee on Education to seize itself of this matter, and I will not give the committee the traditional 2 weeks. I'll give them 1 week. Look for the minister and look for the policy people who are involved in all aspects, including fiscal planning and county governments, approvals, etc. Give a report in this House within 7 days. And I want to emphasize, for the sake of the public and for the sake of the seriousness that this matter deserves, that the comments made by the distinguished senator from Machakos, which comments includes looking for possible liability, including criminal negligence, be addressed by the Education Committee as well. If you need support from the Legal Affairs Committee, the better. You should actually try and borrow some legal insights, or from the legal department of this House. We cannot just lose children like that and keep quiet about it. And just as happened in the Solai matter, the rule in Rillards and Fletcher, in my view, applies squarely and completely. That whoever holds something, whatever it is that they have, if that thing hurts somebody, whether living or non-living thing, and it was within your control, that person must be liable. In terms of civil liability, of tort, but also criminal liability. So ordered. Order, members. We'll have one last statement from Dr. Ali, but before that, I want to appreciate and recognize visitors, students and teachers of St. Teresa Ithanga Secondary School from Murang'a County. They are welcome to the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya, and especially the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Lastly, Senator Dr. Ali, briefly, and I will not allow any observations on it because we have a critical agenda ahead of us. Kindly bear with me because you have given me the privilege of managing our time on behalf of all of us. Senator Dr. Ali?
Can it be done tomorrow then, if that is the issue?
Very well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ali. On request, Senator Maruma? Okay. Instead of Dr. Ali, thank you for being gracious. I would allow the Senator for Taita Taveta to request for his statements, and that will be the last item under that particular order. Senator Mwaruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I stand pursuant to Standing Order 48.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources regarding land adjudication and allocation in Mabomani area and Upper Sophia in Voi Sub-County in Taita Taveta County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, present a list of all people who are allocated land in Mabomani and Upper Sophia and received letters of offer, including those who received letters of offer but failed to pay for associated land costs and those who never collected their letters of offer. Number 2, explain the criteria used to allocate land to the locals and present a list of the size of parcels of land allocated to each beneficiary in Mabomani and Upper Sophia. Number 3, state whether land allotment letters were issued to the residents.
We have been in this house encouraging the health committee.
Order, member for Baringo County. Order, Senator Gideon Moi. Order. Order. Did you say, my friend? Order. Order. Order, Senator Boy, you can consult in low tones. Proceed, leader of my majority.
Mr. Speaker, 2 of us cannot stand at the same time. If you can sit there somewhere there.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr., can you make way for Senator Moi to take that seat and consult in a dignified manner?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed, leader of majority.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so the point I'm making is that we've been admonishing the health committee, admonishing them for, below par performance, Mr. Speaker. And they have taken this challenge over and over again. I want to challenge the Public Accounts Committee that the expectation of this House is beyond what you think you are doing very well. Mr. Speaker, people are asking themselves which reports of which county have been tabled here that indicts how many governors, Mr. Speaker, on grounds of corruption that are so glaring, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, Mr. Speaker. And I was giving a testimony. One senator came to, Mr. Speaker, to my...
Order, members. Yes, proceed, leader of majority.
One senator came to me in my capacity, Mr. Speaker, as the majority leader and said, she attended one of these committees because she was a member of delegation of our county. And Mr. Speaker, when she reached there, the elected senator of that county started, Mr. Speaker, by saying, for the avoidance of doubt, I support my governor 110%, Mr. Speaker. Then followed, Mr. Speaker, by another senator saying, Governor, we were classmates. And there was laughter and joy and tea, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, assuming that was, because it's a reported speech, it was not true. Mr. Speaker, it's important to encourage our committees that this House members, because we live in our counties, we know things that are happening. We can tell, Mr. Speaker, the things, the corruption, we can tell even projects, Mr. Speaker, that members here, like in my county, the Auditor General has pointed out that there is an headquarters building, of a sub-county headquarters building that has been pending, and it has changed contractors, and the former contractor has been paid, the current has been, the second was paid, the third was paid, it's not started, Mr. Speaker. And these are things that are outright. If, Mr. Speaker, now ultimately we come to here and then the report of Elgeyo Marakwet says it is now clear, the Auditor General, and I was a member of that committee, Mr. Speaker, courtesy of your leadership. And Mr. Speaker, for the first 1 year when I started that committee, one of the things that used to baffle me is that the chair stands, asks the question, and then asks the Auditor General, have you cleared that issue? The Auditor General says, it's been cleared. Then we say, proceed. Proceed, Mr. Speaker. Nobody's even challenging to ask, is that building there? Have you seen, Auditor General, have you seen the building? Is it complete? What do you mean by it's been cleared? Because many of the audited reports, the initial audited report are correct. But the intervening period between the auditing, Mr. Speaker, and the ultimate clean report, Mr. Speaker, that's where the devil lies. More than 3 counties in this republic got unqualified audited reports, Mr. Speaker, in the last whatever, including, Mr. Speaker, a county like Machakos, including, Mr. Speaker, Nyadarua, including Makueni, Mr. Speaker. Let me tell you, there is no county that should get unqualified report, even if I was a governor of a county, Mr. Speaker. It is impossible. It's impossible. It's not possible that we are actually lying to the people of Kenya that we have unqualified report, because the people who are running counties are not angels. If the governor doesn't make a mistake, a CC will make a mistake, a chief officer will make a mistake, a mini parastatal in the county will make a mistake, a town or municipal board will make a mistake. You can't tell me that we have counties in this Republic of Kenya where there is cleanness from A to Z. The only truth in that unqualified report is that, Mr. Speaker, these reports in paper are doctored and made, Mr. Speaker, to be clean. Do you want to tell me that, therefore, County Public Accounts Committee in this Senate cannot summon those counties because the report is unqualified? I refuse, Mr. Speaker, to accept. And therefore, we must take a step further, Mr. Speaker, a step further. And I like the fact that the committee is now sitting in counties, sitting in places. We need to take a step further and listen, Mr. Speaker, to the alternative reports that are coming from the citizens of this republic. Because in one of the unqualified county reports, Mr. Speaker, when a proper research was now done to establish this is unqualified report, 50 million went to this school project, Mr. Speaker, or ECD project, Mr. Speaker, they went to find out that there is no ECD. There is no facility. There is no structure on the ground. So, Mr. Speaker, we might be challenged to go further, Professor Ongeri. And I am saying this because, you know, this is a committee that changes every year. It might change next year. It is not, I'm not casting aspersions on the membership of the current membership of the committee, but even as a Senate as a whole, we must be able to sit down and ask ourselves, how best are we going to work to ensure that accountability is going to be achieved in this country, so that then we don't find ourselves in a situation where we have to depend on DCI, EACC, yet this Senate is saying we are oversighting, and we have absolutely no single, Mr. Speaker, indictment on anybody, including those that, Mr. Speaker, are being found to have stolen directly a lot of money in the Republic of Kenya. With all many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Yes, Majority Leader, the remarks were many. Very many. Leader of Minority. And for purposes of equality of arms, the Leader of Minority has an equal chance to make many remarks.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief on this matter, particularly where the real work has been compromised. Now we are just approving. A schedule coming from the Treasury when we should have been, at the beginning of the process. I think even the Leader Majority referred to it. I think that structure and process should be looked at anew. But I just wanted to take a little bit from what the Leader of the Majority was saying before I go to the report substantively. From what he has said, Mr. Speaker, sometimes when you go to some of these counties and you find what the county officials are doing, and then you find the Auditor General or the Senate saying, that county, the county is doing very well, and there's clean record. And you go to the county and the local people can point to you that this man, we saw him walking in the streets with us, and look at that building. In fact, it's not an issue that you have to go to a bank account or to look at some documents. You're being shown real things. And then when they hear us, or the Auditor General saying that, that county is doing very well, we really become a laughing stock. So I would urge the Public Accounts Committee, County Public Accounts Committee, that these remarks are really for them to intensify their work. And the Auditor General is an instrument of Parliament. The Auditor General is accountable to Parliament. They don't report to any other institution. They don't report to the President, doesn't report to the judiciary. It is a mechanism for Parliament to play its role under the principle of no taxation without representation, so that the public will be sure that the money they are being taxed is used effectively for their own good. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I fully agree that Professor Ngeri and the other members of the committee, that we want to see some of these reports that one day we want even to extend the time, because it has come with shocking revelations. Because right now, it would appear that it is the anti-corruption, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which is doing quite a bit of this work. But the constitutional instrument, really, that we have is the Auditor General, and the Auditor General is accountable to us. Now, Mr. Speaker, the only point that I really wanted to address, other than supporting the motion, is that in a different circumstances, I may probably say that what we are doing now amounts to nothing, because it's based on an illegality right from the beginning. That all this debate can be rendered, nullity. I was listening to the Speaker of the House of Commons, who upon their pronouncement of the Supreme Court in the United Kingdom, was saying Parliament is resuming debate. There was never a prorogation. And the journals and records of Parliament must be corrected, that there was never a prorogation. And the record in the journal that was entered, courtesy of the prerogative of the Queen to prorogue, that was expunged. So in different circumstances, we may find that somebody getting orders that what has happened since the discussion of those two bills, that is the Divisional Revenue Bill and the County Allocation Bill, that all those amounted to nothing, and therefore the consequence of this motion also amounts to nothing. And it is not lost to me, Mr. Speaker, because this is something that we will not wish away. Me definitely would not wish it away. And the Speaker addressed himself to when he was giving a ruling arising out of discussions that took place in Kitui, that some of his pronouncements cannot be made now. He shall await the outcome of the matter before the court. But, Mr. Speaker, it must be said without fear or contradiction that the question of Clause 1 of the Divisional Revenue Act or Bill was not a matter for mediation at all. Even if the record comes out that, the mediation committee probably spoke to it and agreed to it, it was outside their jurisdiction. Yes, that's the right word, ultra vires. It is not what the speakers of the both houses committed for mediation. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I hope that whereas sometimes we have tried to pin our hopes on what probably is called as a law of principle of necessity, that it's possible to justify our conduct or exculpate, us breaking the law. But as Lord Denning once said, that, if you apply the law of necessity, it can lead to an absurdity, because poverty may be so extreme that then a man who has not gone without food for a year or 2 months or a day can use, that principle to break a house, to go into a restaurant and eat for free, whereas in law actually would be an act of theft. So disobedience of the law in whatever shape or form only brings anarchy and disorder. And that should not be encouraged. So, Mr. Speaker, as we pass this motion, I hope we will revisit. And when we revisit, I know the Speaker has the best words to address the court. Last time I listened to you, and I said I should just be a cheerleader.
Thank you, Leader of Minority.
Yeah, but in conclusion,
It's not easy to be complimented by a senior counsel.
In conclusion, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Leader of Majority. Order. Proceed, Leader of Minority.
Sometimes even the rules, leading one to be a senior counsel, we should also examine the criteria. Yeah. But Mr. Speaker, I'm glad of what we're doing, despite all those fears I've expressed, because at the end of the day, when I go back to my count, I have a schedule which I can go back and show the people of Siaya that you have been given so much money, courtesy of the Senate, by passing 2 essential legislation, and now there is a motion that was passed in which the National Assembly was not playing a role within the exclusive jurisdiction of the Senate, that without passing this schedule, you will not get a cent. And the schedule is as follows. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, it gives me extreme strength and political weight. And just carrying this schedule is good enough for me to buy political capital. I go to the market. Mwezi huu 10 billion imeingia. Let the governor show where it went. So this is an empowering process, as simple as it looks. I saw, Mr. Speaker, in a particular county which I shall not name, where somebody was just carrying these reports, the audit reports, the Hansard reports of the Hansard, and going to funerals. and
order, Senator Kabaka, order.
And for each funeral, depending on what was said, he would have a different message. And that built him to a formidable candidate. This case certainly is not Senator Kabaka, but he's on the right path properly. So I support this motion, and I commend this Finance Committee. It's a very effective committee doing very technical work. And whenever I listen to the chairman and the vice chairman, although I tend to listen to the chairman more and the minority whip, they have done an extremely good work, because when they come, when they make a presentation, it is obvious that they understand what they are doing. I hope other committees are going to follow in their footsteps, and particularly, as everybody has talked about it, the Committee on Health, the Committee on Security has slowed down a little bit. The Public Accounts Committee, County Public Accounts Committee, I think is not doing badly, but I think they could do a little better. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Leader of Minority, for those great remarks. For those senators who are feeling lightweight, be advised accordingly. Order, members. The next, now I'll give the floor to the distinguished senator for Kisii County, Senator Professor Ongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity that you have given me. There are very unfortunate remarks that have been made on this floor of the House. And,
Order, members.
And really, I want to take the earliest opportunity to disabuse this kind of, I think, misunderstanding of the role and the activities of Public Accounts Committee. One, Mr. Speaker, that it is the Public Accounts Committee that has been able to bring to book the majority of the governors who initially could not even appear before that committee. Two, that the accounts for 2013-14, 2014-15, 2015-16, 2016-17, and 2017-18 had not been done in the last session of Senate by the Public Accounts Committee. So we have on the table 237 reports, 35 reports, not 37, 35 reports on the executive alone. Leave alone the assembly, the counter assemblies. Again, another 235 reports. Then, if you add on the funds, the various county funds that are there, we are dealing with more than 500 reports emanating from 2013-14 to 2017-18. Mr. Speaker, let me put it in this manner shortly, that indeed we have been able to come to 2017-18, covering all those years behind, because we strongly believe there is no point doing a postmortem on reports without being current. Therefore, we are current, and we did present before this honorable House the fiduciary report covering all those years, that when we look through the books of accounts and everything else, we've been able to cover and know what are the danger points, what are the areas of corruption, what are the areas of misuse or abuse of office, and accordingly, we've been able to put it in the context. Finally, on that point, let me say this, that it's only today that we have been able to clear at least 10 counties in today's sitting, from those years I've mentioned up to 2017-18 current, and they will be tabled before this House. And at the weekend, we intend also to do another 10 or 20. By the end of this week, coming week, we might be doing out of 47. So we'll be doing 235 reports current from the year they were there up to this. If there is an accolade to go, should go to the Committee of Public Accounts, because we have been able, and the able Vice Chairman is here, he's just come in, we've been able to go through all those accounts and to update, because we were very tired of this language that the division of revenue was being based on the last audited accounts. And the last audited accounts that the national government is using to be able to effect the division of revenue is based on 2013-2014 accounts, books of accounts. And when you look at those audited accounts, they were under 1 trillion. Today, the national budget of this country is 3.2 trillion Kenya shillings. And therefore, for us to be able to position ourselves to bargain on the basis, should this policy continue, that it will be based on the current audited books of account, we thought that Senate should take a lead so that we're able to be current, and therefore they will have no excuse. The only excuse they will have is that the National Assembly has not been able to be current. So I think you should congratulate the Public Accounts Committee for reaching at that level. The other point, which has been untouched, is the question of unqualified accounts. I think you are referring to Makueni and you are referring to Nyandarua. There were only 2 unqualified accounts, books of accounts in these 2 counties. We opened up the Bandora's box in Makueni. They were to appear in Kitui. They didn't appear. So today morning, the Sergeant at Arms served summons to the Makueni County government. We shall be there with the permission of the House on Tuesday to interrogate the report. And again today, the county government of Machakos was served with and I think the senator is in the knowledge, was served with a summon that we shall be there on Monday to interrogate the books of that account. So for anybody to stand here and say that the Public Accounts Committee has done nothing, I think it would be a misadventure in that story. I can only call it a misadventure. They should wait, and I think they should not preempt the report. It's going to be on this floor of the House. Having said so, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this schedule of disbursement. One of the biggest problems we are finding in the Public Accounts Committee is that when we audit those books, when we examine those books, when we interrogate those books, one of the biggest problem is the late delivery or late exchequer releases from the National Treasury to the county governments. And we are now seeing that one of the problems, one of the mischiefs that is causing the pending bills
is because the funds that ought to be disbursed before 30th of June of the ensuing financial year are now being disbursed in the following ensuing financial year. Consequently, this does not fall within the budgets that the county government had developed that are done very well. And for your information, Mr. Speaker, today one of those accounts that we went through, which will come before this House, is Tharaka Nithi county report, which is very voluminous. And I think you can take solace that we have done all the books from 2013-14 to the current 2017-2018. It's one of those that we concluded today, that it will appear before this House, including Siaya, where the minority leader comes from. And we're soon catching up with Elgeyo Marakwet. And I wish the majority leader was here, because he's scheduled to appear before us, and we're going to ask him whether he should be here or in his own headquarters. And the ball is on his court, so he should not lament here.
So is the majority leader appearing before the committee or the governor of?
Yeah?
Is it the majority leader who is appearing before the committee
I'm talking
or the
about
governor,
the governor
of Elgeyo Marakwet?
No, we were saying we're going to consult the senator of the county,
yes,
to give us an appropriate date when we can also, so that we can, at all times, we want the senator of the county to be there. We also want the public accounts of that county to be there. We also want ourselves to be there, and the public to also be able to be there. And when time permits, we also do go out and inspect some projects. In the next coming 2 weeks, you will see, next month rather, you will see a completely different approach to these public accounts committee programs. Now, having said that, Mr. Speaker, one of the headaches that we must cure is that when we pass this schedule, the National Treasury must adhere to the disbursement of this schedule. Because what is happening, they do not disburse funds on time. Consequently, the counties are unable to meet some of the expenditures, and this has created a loophole where they go looking for funds, and some of them want to spend on-source revenue to be able to meet some of their obligations, and they describe them as urgent, which is, of course, against the laid down rules of this of the public accounts management rules. And therefore, we're saying this, that this schedule must be strictly adhered to. And if they are saying that they are going to release in one format 55 billion for July, August, and September, they had better do so within 1 week. What does that mean? I've looked very briefly at my county. When I looked at the schedule, that if that were to happen, then my county will be able to get 1,354,746,600,000 on the equitable share disbursement. Now, that's a good sum of money, and they should be able to make good use of it. And with this in hand, we should be able then to oversight and know where these funds have gone. Have they gone in accordance with the budget that they have also been able to pass, the annual budget, or is it outside the budget? Are these funds being spent in accordance with the programs that they have laid on the ground in the first quarter of the disbursement, or is it outside what they have laid down? And you can be able to pin them down. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things you're going to be shocked, that the report that is going to come before you, I don't want to preempt the report, there are so many recommendations for action. And I think it's up to this House to be able to take a decision, because we can only recommend to you, and it's up to you to be able to take the decision on whether those recommendations are acceptable or not acceptable. Some of them are direct surcharge. And by the way, we now have EACC sitting in our committee, and we are saying the EACC on their own motion can pick up a point which is sticky while we are prosecuting it at the minute without wasting time and go ahead with the investigations. And indeed, they have already done so. And some of the things that are appearing before, the Kiambu case and many other cases that have now appeared before this, is as a result of EACC sitting with us and picking some of those salient features that are offending the usage of money in some of these counties, and therefore they are subject to legal processes that must take place. It's not the function of Public Accounts Committee to prosecute. The function of the Public Accounts Committee is to shame and bring it to the book those who have misappropriated the funds. And therefore, with this release, disbursement, I think each senator is in a proper position to be able to check and see how the funds have been utilized, and being able to sit with us when we're interrogating his county and telling us, because they are the people on the ground who know where the projects have been done, the people where the projects have not been done, they can bring it to our attention so that we are able to know and then be able to make an appropriate recommendation to this committee. And I've also noticed that at the end of the day, my county will be getting more than 7.78 billion Kenya shillings on the equitable share. And I think that's a good share of money. On conditional grants, Chair, I think this is where we have a problem, because some of these funds cannot be audited, because we don't know how they are disbursed from the National Treasury. We don't know how, we only accept a report which is placed in our hands. And I think it's an area that now this Senate must agree and must be able to do how we do the monitoring and the evaluation of these conditional grants. And they are increasing in figures. And we must keep our eyeball on these conditional grants, because eventually, as partners come in with these conditional grants, the county governments tend to hide away, and they only say that they are only accountable to shareable revenue. Far from it. And again, one of the problems that we had is when the High Court pronounced itself that the county assembly cannot be able to audit the on-source revenue. And I think it's an issue that I think we ought to pick up as the Senate, because there's no way you can separate on-source revenue, because they form part and parcel of the integral funds within the county. And therefore, they must appear in the county revenue account, the county revenue account. That's the constitutional mandate, that any funds, receivable funds, must appear in the county revenue, in the revenue account. If they are not there, then those funds are being misused. They are being spent outside the normal regulatory mechanisms that have been provided both by the Constitution and by the PFM Act, and of course by the Public Audit Act. That for us, for the Auditor General to have access to those funds, they must therefore be receivable in the accounts. Now, another problem that is we're already seeing this IFMIS story, and I think you'll hear more stories when we table our report. And I think the National Treasury should configure out the IFMIS, because they have rolled out the 4 standards of IFMIS platforms. And you see some counties, they do not know how to disaggregate those platforms. That's why you see some of the counties budgeting for State House when it doesn't even really concern them as counties, because they have taken the paper that is used by the National Assembly and the National Treasury be able to bring it there. And finally, Mr. Speaker, let me say this, that county governments cannot run away from the amount of money. It's our desire that when we finally get there, that they should get between 35 and 40% of the national revenue. And we're also saying, for them to qualify for that, we're also saying that it must be based not on the last audited account, because I think that's where the game is. It must be based on the annual estimates of the budget by the National Treasury. And I think we should be able to do the law here. And if the reform ever comes, one of the major reforms that must be made, and one of the reforms that we must do while looking at the Public Finance Act, and I've seen a lot of amendments coming before this floor, and I think we should look at one that will give authority that whatever is received annually on the basis of annual budget of the National Treasury, which is 3.2 trillion. If we were to base that criteria, then this business of struggling year in, year out with the National Assembly, that how much money is available for equitable sharing will be a story of the past. And I think that's the direction we should go, and that's the position we should take. And these counties will get upward from 450 billion Kenya shillings to 600 billion, and they will have enough money to be able to do the developments. And finally, Mr. Speaker, there are some functions that have been assigned to the county governments which are being performed by the national government. And that's why the resources are being hid in the national government. Look for instance, health. 98% of the resources at the national level when they should be at the county level. And health is a fully developed function. Agriculture is a fully developed function. The village polytechnics, I don't know how this money is being utilized, because that forms the basis of skill, bequeathing skills to our young people so they can be techno-savvy. And if we do not take a deliberate decision and policy to be able to bequeath them, we'll continue lamenting about unemployment in county all the time. And we need to empower these young people, youth, to be able to be techno-savvy. Therefore, they can also go for self-employment rather than seeking for collar jobs. With those few remarks, I support this department schedule.
Thank you, Senator Professor Ongeri. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. You have actually made a very good case about what your committee is doing. However, having listened to the majority leader and the minority leader, the issue really is not that the committee is not working. I understood, and now I communicate from the chair, my understanding is that the House and the public is waited for too long. And the committee is taking too much time in the kitchen. And two, that you are under public spotlight. So the way, the lawyers will tell you that, justice has to be seen to be done. Because your work is oversight and you're doing it on behalf of the House, it's actually adversarial. Because you have an accused person, is accused of plundering money meant for roads and hospitals and drugs. So the way you conduct yourself as you do those hearings is very important, so that you are not seen as if it's a diplomatic conference where you are having a nice time with governors and other people whom you call. I think it was more or less of a methodology issue than casting aspersions or thinking that perhaps any particular member of the committee is doing wrong. So you should take it in stride and as a source of encouragement. And in fact, it shows that the Senate still has faith in you and wants you to produce results. The public wants casualties. They want to see casualties. They want to see people who have plundered money meant for poor citizens looking miserable, defeated, and weak. We don't want them to parade here and talk big. I heard some governors whom I don't want to name in the past 1 week lecturing the country and the Senate on why they can't do this or the other. And they have a lot of bravado. This House, through you, must instill the fear of God and the fear of the law in these people. They must crawl before you and before the public as they try to exonerate themselves. Very well, that was communication from the chair. I'll now give the floor, I think I've been on this side too much. Senator Naomi Wako. Thank you. Senator Naomi Wako, before I come back to the minority side. Senator Wako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And well done, Senator Professor Ongeri. Well done. I was just congratulating you on your speech. No wonder you are called ambassador, among other titles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to give my mind on the approval of the county government cash disbursement for financial year 2019-2020. Mr. Speaker, it is good that we are discussing this very important matter this particular time. And we know that our counties have suffered for some time and eagerly waiting for this. Mr. Speaker, again, what we need to just remind ourselves is through devolution, many of our people, the citizens, have really benefited. Yes, corruption is high on the ground. Many things are going wrong. A lot of money cannot maybe even be accounted for. Few individuals are benefiting. Those who are close to the executive are really benefiting and getting richer. We have what at the county levels people call overnight millionaires. But even with all that, devolution has helped our people on the ground. And even in areas that we used to say are marginalized, now you can see buildings, great buildings coming up, people developing themselves, the towns being developed, and you can see some growth taking place. That is all through devolution, which we should see how it can continue and how it can benefit our people even more and more. It is unfortunate that the division revenue was based on 2013-2014 audited report. Mr. Speaker, so many years down the line, we are still basing that on the past, like 5 years or even more, 6 years or even more, which is unfortunate and which will not guide us well. But because we are in that situation now, there is nothing much we can do, although for the future, we should avoid that. And it is my humble request to the Finance and Budget Committee to work extra hard. Professor has put it clear, and he has said that they are determined to work almost 24 hours and make the difference. It is our prayer that this committee will work extra hard so that the Kenyans who depend on this then can have clear mind on what is happening on their county, in their counties, and also see how best we can improve the services on the ground. Mr. Speaker, when the counties don't get their monies on time, a lot of things are affected. We know that even work is the work on the ground is affected, the salary payment is affected, and that means the performance of the staff goes down. And especially when you consider health department, that depends on people's effort and sacrifice beside the salaries they get. They are even the staff, when they don't get their salaries on time, they are demoralized. And so we should work very hard so that the counties get their shares as early as possible, and even the treasury releases the money on time to the counties. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that there are projects that have been going on for many years in many counties. Once this money is gotten, then it is our prayer that even the stalled projects can be revived. There are people who have been given the job, the contractors, they are discouraged, they keep on paying loans, they have not been paid, and there are so many things that are happening on the ground which is so discouraging. And sometimes people even wonder, you know, why they have been identified as contractors or as people who are doing different things. So stalled projects and other things that need proper attention be given. Mr. Speaker, before I finish, we have always talked about financial mismanagement at the county level. This is something that is affecting the entire nation. And corruption is as a result of financial mismanagement. We have people who wait for their opportunity to come so that they can fetch as much as they can pocket as much as they can, and create their own wealth while other Kenyans are dying in poverty. And I think, Mr. Speaker, it is high time for us to see how best those who mismanage finances and other resources, other public resources, can be harshly punished so that others cannot even think or imagine of doing that. We have other countries where when you steal, they cut your hand. And I think as Kenyans, we don't need just to talk of corruption or financial mismanagement and all these other things. We need to come up with tough measures so that any man or any woman who thinks of that will look at himself or herself and say, I don't want to lose this part of my body. Mr. Speaker, one time I watched a clip, a young man who raped a lady in Somalia. And in court, they decided to deal with him there and then. And I saw another man coming with a knife and quoting Senator Naomi Shionga. He lost a better part of his body. So if we can introduce some tough measures in Kenya, I'm sure we will be able to minimize some of the things that are happening in our country. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General and the team also need to work hard, because most of the time when the audited reports are circulated, many people even doubt what happens. And sometimes, you know, we cannot talk of the rumors or things that we have no facts. But people say that there are many things that happen even before they compile the audited report. So it is good for us to have measures in place that can control every single step that takes place after, you know, the finances are released. And through the finance and budget, the innocent people and be the voice for the voiceless, and see how best the resources that we have in our country can be well used and can benefit the poor common man on the ground. Thank you, and I support the motion.
Thank you, Senator Wako. Distinguished Senator for Machakos County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving this opportunity. Also to support the motion by my committee of Finance and Budget on the subject. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll be very brief. I know I have a lot of time, but I'll be very brief to the issues. And I wish to state as follows. Mr. Speaker, this issue of the leased medical equipment keeps on recurring every now and then. And as a senator, I always wonder, what is that this house cannot do? Why can't we revise these illegal contracts and make the heads roll? Mr. Speaker, the second issue with regard to what has been stated by other senators here, the issue of on-source revenue, the deficit. For example, I'm aware that my county, Machakos, is going to receive approximately 7.8 billion. But with regards to the on-source revenue, which Senator Professor Ongeri has really espoused, it is very sad that during the time of municipal councils, Mavoko alone, which is a 8th sub-county, of course the richest in Machakos, the then mayor used to collect 3 billion per annum. But today is very sad that whereas the auditor's report indicate that the county ought to have been collecting about 2.7 billion per annum, now the county is collecting too little, about 650 million. So there is a whooping loss of about 2 billion. My question as Senator of Machakos, where does this money go to? Mr. Speaker, we can only speculate that the money is misappropriated and end up in the individual's benefits. Mr. Speaker, there is lack of prudence, and it's the high time that we fill in the lacuna at the Senate by amending a raft of laws or finance laws, including the PFM Act and other related acts of parliament, so that this aspect, or rather the lacuna that the Senate cannot really audit the on-source revenue, will be a gone case. That gap must be filled. Mr. Speaker, there is also the other issue which was stated here by Majority Leader, Senator Murkomen, when he said that there were delays in releasing of the revenue by the National Treasury. But I would rather also add that there is a further artificial delay occasioned by the executive. Anytime this money is released to the executive, and this was the war we had with the executive of Machakos at the beginning of our term, is that the executive was refusing to release that money, or the better chunk, to the county assemblies, simply because the executive wanted to emasculate, intimidate, and threaten the county assembly members, to dilute the oversight role. I submit that we need also to change the laws to allow, or rather to allow the National Treasury to split that amount at the source of the Treasury. One chunk to go straight to the executive, and the other one to go to the county assembly kitty. That one will cure that malady. Mr. Speaker, sir, you have heard the issue of by Professor Ongeri, which I differ with a lot of respect, that there is ESCC who sits, or rather personnel from ESCC who sit along the CPIC. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've also sat from time to time to that committee, but I've never seen the efficacy and even the importance of the ESCC members, because, Mr. Speaker, I've never seen them even act, even talk during that committee deliberations. Mr. Speaker, I submit that whereas it is very important that these monies go to the counties, I wish to state that corruption is a big challenge. And indeed, I'm supported by the Auditor General's reports, which reports were meant even long before the first timers like me came to this house. If anything, Mr. Speaker, I submit that the accounts, the Auditor's report 2017-2018, for example, for Machakos, speaks volumes. It shows even some instance where the donor funds from Daninda and some other funds from World Banks were withdrawn. It is the auditor's report, 2017-2018. And since some of the questions we'll be asking the governor on Monday in Machakos at 9, as per the summons issued, to show why certain monies from the donor, Daninda, and the World Banks were withdrawn directly through ECSC to private pockets. Mr. Speaker, it is high time that the CPIC pushes the agenda for this house. We want to see blood. We don't want jokes. Kenyans are watching and we want parties to be accountable. This is money belonging to the public. This is the money belonging to taxpayers, and governors should not think the money is theirs. They should be accountable. If you are a governor of any county, let alone Machakos, and you cannot account for the public, then you better chip out. Because we are coming for you. You'll be accountable. Whatever we have used, whatever we have planted, you will reimburse to the people of those counties. Thank you.
Senator Kabaka, you brought an important issue. You can have your seat. You brought an important issue about the judgment that was rendered regarding the role of the Senate on on-source revenue, as well as the county assemblies. I do hope that judgment has been appealed. And even if it has not been appealed, I think there should be ways in which, through our Legal Affairs Committee, I see Senior Counsel Okongo Morgan here, I see Distinguished Counsel Mutula Kilonso Jr. here, Counsel Kabaka himself. On this issue, I would like to guide that a way be sought to open up this matter, even if in a differently crafted suit, because I believe the court was in error to apply Article 96(3) in a quite pedestrian and simplistic manner, which talks about the Senate allocating or determining the allocation of monies from the national level and oversighting the same funds. But generally, and this is food for thought I'm giving to the Legal Affairs Committee and the lawyers in this house, because we owe a duty to the nation as an institution. This matter cannot just be left to lie like this. I believe that the general duty of the Senate to protect and defend devolution and county governments includes defense and protection of counties from external and external threats, including stealing own source revenue. So you can jump from 96.3 and go back to 96.1 and make a strong case. So that is food for thought. What is it, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.?
I know, Speaker, you stopped me from anticipating debates, but let me also help. For the first time, the National Assembly has submitted a PFM amendment. It's the first time. And that PFM amendment talks about shareable revenue. This is the opportunity of including a clause under Article 96 that would cure what is called a judgment per incuriam by the Court of Appeal. Thank you.
Well said. And I think that should be followed up at that point. And I want to request on behalf of the House that Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. keeps an eye on that, so that when this matter comes for debate on the PMFA Amendment Act, we regularize the irregular thinking that came from our courts with great respect. Very well. Senator Mithika Linturi has taken off. You can see him. The distinguished senator for Kisii County. Nyamira County, which is a neighbor of Kisii County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, there is a difference between Kisii and Nyamira.
Absolutely, except Senior Counsel, you are not disputing that the two counties are neighbors.
It's like Meru and Tharaka Nithi.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the county government cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2019-2020. And first, Mr. Speaker, I want to make a point to my colleague, distinguished senator for Kisii, Senator Sam Ongeri, that when we hear some strong views on the performance of PAC, it's because it's a reflection on the feelings of our people on the ground. And we are not really passing a harsh judgment on the committee, but it's just a way of some peer review mechanism on our colleague, and also to urge them to be more aggressive against governors. Because, Mr. Speaker, the cry in our counties from everybody is that county governments and the employees in our counties are misusing money. You know, that's the talk, and we cannot run away from that fact. And it's because people at the county level have seen, you know, CEC members come into office as paupers, then they are transformed into millionaires. In fact, some are driving vehicles most of us cannot dream of driving. And then the people on the ground are not seeing blood. That's why we are raising this issue, Professor Senator Sam Ongeri. And Mr. Speaker, I must say that devolution will never achieve its purpose unless we deal with this dragon called corruption. That is the truth, that is the fact, and we cannot run away from that fact, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say this, Mr. Speaker, that we need to have the approach of the DPP. We don't need to pick all cases of counties. You know, deal with others half-heartedly, then pick the next one. And I must give my case in point. I sat in the PAC committee that interrogated the affairs of the county government of Nyamira. And Mr. Speaker, some of the issues that had been raised was for construction in a market where the financial, you know, drawings indicated that some tiling had been done in that market. And the people raised protests and said that has never been done. And when the governor appeared, Mr. Speaker, I made a case that let's visit the county government, the Nyamira headquarters. We go to that building, we look at that building, and then we make a conclusion. Mr. Speaker, it's almost 1 year down the line. Now, again, tomorrow I'm told that my governor is coming. Again, we'll appear there, we'll have stories. I mean, that does not inspire confidence with our people. I think where there are serious issues, and another case was the issue of a borehole, where the auditor raised an issue. He said there was budget allocation, money was paid to drill a borehole, and there's no borehole, there's no water. And the best way to make people have confidence in the Senate is that we do a visit. We do a visit to the counties. Let's have a look. Say, look, this is what the auditor has said. This is what you are saying, Governor. What is the position on the ground? And then from there, we can summon the DPP here and say, why haven't you taken these people to court? Because they have been paid money for services not rendered. That's what we are looking for. And I want to tell this House that people at the counties want to see blood. They want to see blood being drawn. They want to see some governors who have stolen their money in jail. That is the spirit. And unless we do that, we will never achieve what the justice system is meant to achieve, deterrence. Unless governors see some of them being locked up behind bars, they will continue stealing money that is meant to improve the livelihood of poor people. And we are talking about poor, vulnerable people. And money being stolen is money meant for health services. Money is supposed to improve agriculture so that we can improve the livelihoods of our people. So this is not something that we as leaders really can take lightly. So I want to make a strong appeal to members who serve in PAC. Also, let's be men and women of integrity. You know, at times you read stories online. When governors are appearing, you read people are saying, we are told Senator so-and-so is meeting governor before the meeting of PAC takes place. This should not happen. We see these things. And this thing is really giving a very bad name to this House. Let's have rules of operation. If you serve in PAC, for God's sake, if a governor calls you to intercon, don't go there. Yes, we shouldn't. That's how it should be. Let's be men and women beyond reproach. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, because of the rules of natural justice.
Thank you. All big calls, I mean, all these things. So I think, Mr. Speaker, we are all saying because of the frustrations we face, because of the feeling on the ground that we are not doing enough. And this power to oversight is in the Constitution. It's there in Article 96, Article 3. So we have constitutional powers. It's not statutory, it's constitutional. So I really want to urge my good friends who serve in PAC, hype up the game, build the confidence, let our people on the ground feel that the Senate is doing oversight. Going back to this issue, Mr. Speaker, I'm always very reluctant to, question some actions by the judiciary. But we filed a suit in the High Court, if I'm not wrong, that's over 2 months ago. And when I served as Law Society of Kenya in the year 2007 to 2011, I remember that we actually petitioned the removal of the then Chief Justice Gicheru. And that's why he was given a limited period of transiting from the previous constitution to the new one, because he used to take a very long period to appoint a panel of judges to hear constitutional petition matters where it requires more than one judge. To appoint 3 judges, it could take up to 6 months. I was shocked, I must say, when I appeared in court last week together with Senator Kabaka, and the judge casually just told us that, oh, we are sorry, we don't have a panel of 3 judges that has been picked up to hear your matter. Really, how can such a small administrative issue take over 2 months? I mean, that's not the way to dispense justice. And I think this constitution that we have says justice should not be delayed. I want to make a very strong appeal to the leadership of the judiciary to give some serious attention to such, that's a very heavy constitutional petition that is in court. And the best that the judiciary can do is to allocate time. We don't want to influence the final findings, but at least give it priority, allocate it time, so that a decision can be found. Because, Mr. Speaker, it will be very unfortunate if in the next financial year, we again go back to the debacle that we faced this financial year. I and Senator Mutula appeared on behalf of the Senate for the mediation. And there was no mediation. We were just engaging in a shouting match. Personally, I would not want to be appointed to sit in a mediation with the National Assembly if the caliber of people that will appear there will include the likes of Duale, the likes of the nominated Senate MP, Sangok, who just tells abuses on honorable members of parliament. I think that's not the way we need to conduct business. We need to have an approach that portrays us as leaders who can discuss issues soberly on the table. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I want to challenge this Senate. Let us have a 2-pronged approach. If our solution cannot come from the judiciary, let's go back to the people. Mr. Speaker, we are 68 senators here. How can we allow a man like my good friend Dr. Ekuro Aukot to go to the people, raise 1 million signatures, move an amendment to the Constitution, when we, the 67 of us, cannot do that? Simple calculation, Mr. Speaker. If we wanted to amend this Constitution through popular initiative, and we divide that initiative among the 68 senators, all you need to collect is less than 20,000 signatures. I mean, Senator Mutula, Senator Ongeri, Senator Mwaruma, we can get these things. I mean, why? And we have good partners in the county assemblies. Because this delay in disbursement of money, the inadequacy of resources being sent to counties resonates with the members of county assembly. I'm not seeing any challenge in us obtaining approval from more than 25 county assemblies. So I want to challenge us as senators to be bold and say, if push comes to shove, let's go back to the people. Let us draft a constitutional amendment. We go back to the people. We get the 1 million signatures. We go for a referendum so that we strengthen this Senate. Otherwise, history will never forgive us. Because some of these things are happening because some people want to give a skewed interpretation to our Constitution. What is in Article 94 about legislative authority being in the National Assembly and in the Senate is in the same language like what is in the US Congress and Senate. It's the same. It was actually picked and just copy-pasted into our Constitution. And if you go to the US, the Senate has more say on issues dealing with appropriation of money than what we have here. And it's because members of the National Assembly have this fixated mind that senators should not have any say on revenue sharing. I mean, how can we, 7 years after enactment of our constitution, still be debating on interpretation of Article 218? I've read in this schedule, Madam Speaker, that we are urging the county governments to expeditiously...
Order.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Mr.
The
Speaker,
nearest
sir.
madam to you is the distinguished Senator Zani.
Speaker, sir. Madam
The
Speaker,
other one is the distinguished Senator Pareno. Maybe you are addressing one of them.
Mr. Speaker, there is an infectious smile coming from my right.
Order, order.
That's what is causing confusion. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's...
You are aggravating the situation.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm sorry. Correction, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Proceed.
I read, Mr. Speaker, that county government should expeditiously prepare and adopt annual budget and appropriation bill to ensure service delivery. You can see the confusion that has been caused by these disagreements between National Assembly and Senate. You know, there are some counties that have already passed their budgets, passed their appropriation bills, in total defiance of Article 224 of the Constitution. I mean, how can we be a country that does not want to respect and adhere to constitutionalism? Really? How can it be? I mean, this is something that we as a house should fight day and night to ensure that we bring to an end this idea of confusion on how we should interpret our constitution and really apply it. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we should not joke around with the lives of our Kenyan people. In my county of Nyamira, from shared revenue, we are sending 4.8 plus billion. From the grants, 600 million. And Mr. Speaker, our governors must be reminded that some of this money, these are debts Kenyans are going to pay. Already, if you take just statistics, you will be told that each Kenyan owes a Chinese 11,000 shillings. 11,000. So when we give this money to the county governments, it's not to go and grease their pockets. This is not pocket money for governors. This is money that is supposed to improve lives of our people. And we are getting some of this money, like Mr. Speaker, an example in my county of Nyamira. We are giving this county government 350 million from IDA to assist them in the National Agriculture Rural Inclusive Project. And what should be the use of that money? They should use it to increase agricultural productivity and food security. But you will be surprised that at times, Mr. Speaker, this money...
Order.
I'm really in a lot of trouble.
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
What is happening today, Senator for Nyamira?
The problem is... I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this money is supposed to... Have I said madam again? Mr. Speaker, this money is supposed to improve...
What is it, Senator Zani?
Mr. Speaker, is Senator Mugen in order by insisting on calling you Madam, especially having come from Kitui and knowing that there's a stone there where if you go around 7 times, you can change your gender, and we've just come back. Might there be something he knows that we might not know?
Yeah, Senator Zani is right. You know, Senator Omogeni, the reputation is notoriously curious. Is anything the matter? You know, the reputation is so notorious that begs the question whether all is well. What is it, Senator Pareno? You are also aggrieved.
Mr. Speaker, the information I want to give is that most of the times at this particular time and hour, it is the Madam Speakers who are normally seated. So I think, I think it is such confusion that is causing, I mean, that is what is causing the confusion today.
That's what you think. But let's hear from the, yes, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
But if for any reason, Mr. Speaker, and I saw you at Kitui and you went to the Zambani Rock, you can only ask Senator Mogeni to approach the bench.
Order. And? Order, Senator Makwenya. You have not completed your sentence. The chair should ask the senator for Nyamira to approach the chair and order. Order. You have fallen into the trap. You are out of order. You are out of order. And Senator for Nyamira, you are out of order. Out of order.
I withdraw that remark of Madam Speaker. No, I withdraw that remark of Madam Speaker and replace it with Mr. Speaker, sir. I will not repeat again, Mr. Speaker.
I hope you are winding up your remarks.
Yes, I'm now winding up. Mr. Speaker, the point I was making, Mr. Speaker, is that the money that we are getting from our donors is supposed to improve many things at our counties. In terms of agriculture, Mr. Speaker, we need to see more support for farmer groups, cooperative societies. We need to see more extension officers. We need to see counties assisting our farmers get markets, technology, all these things, so that, Mr. Speaker, there can be improved livelihoods. But I'm sorry to say that the counties are notorious in diverting this money to other things other than this conditional support that they are getting from the national government through these grants. And that's really unfortunate. And these are things we have seen in audited accounts of most of our counties. In conclusion, I hope that money that is meant to improve health so that we increase the children who are fully immunized can be protected by counties. We improve mortality rates in our counties, and then increase the number of women between 18 and 49 who are using modern family planning. Unless counties use this money for intended purposes, all these good projections and good intentions will never be achieved. I support Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Distinguished Senator Jude Pareno, order, Senator Pareno, before you take the floor, approach the chair together with the minority whip. Not for the purposes that were suggested earlier by the Senator from Makueni in respect of Senator Omogeni. That's not why you're approaching the chair. Very well. Senator Pareno, you now have the floor.
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, definitely to support the disbursement schedule, which has finally come after a long struggle, after the push and pull between the National Assembly and Senate, and finally giving in to the amounts that were finally to be allocated. So we are finally happy that we are there, Mr. Speaker, because the counties then will be able to do what they're supposed to do, probably immediately as per the provisions once this disbursement schedule is approved, then within 7 days, we expect that the actual disbursement is done. Mr. Speaker, the issue now after this is not the passing of this motion by this House, but how fast and whether what we resolve is implemented in the manner that is indicated in this disbursement schedule. Mr. Speaker, you know that severally this House has had to complain because of the manner in which disbursements are done. Yes, we approve, we do the disbursement, but it is not done as per schedule. It's not done as is required. So, and you know, Mr. Speaker, we are already late in terms of implementing the budgets of the counties. We have taken so much time. The counties are being wasted, and a lot of development is stalled because of either lack of money, or when the monies come, sometimes they are disbursed so late in the day that they are even unable to finish what they are supposed to finish within the time. Mr. Speaker, the last I heard of Kajiado, and I really wish that this time they pull up their socks. The last I heard when we had the budget report, the control of budget report on how the counties had been able to realize their budgets, is that we don't even have records. And this applies to a lot of other counties. I'm not just speaking for Kajiado. You don't even have proper personnel that are implementing these budgets. In fact, for an example that was given for Kajiado is that when they looked at the files, they couldn't even tell what qualifications the people had. That the people that are supposed to be the ones implementing in whatever projects that are being undertaken are not probably either not qualified, and if they are not qualified, they have not disclosed, Mr. Speaker. So I think we really have a lot of homework to do. We implore upon our counties to ensure that we have proper implementation by the right people, Mr. Speaker. And again, Mr. Speaker, I still give an example of what I observed with the report on Kajiado, that actually they did not disclose the ONSOS revenue. They didn't even disclose some of the assets that they had. Specifically for Kajiado, they didn't even disclose that they have a farm, an animal farm, where I know they even sell bulls and sell them very expensively, and I see them there grazing, and they didn't disclose in their
the animals equal in that farm?
Sorry, Mr. Speaker?
In that animal farm, are the animals equal in Kajiado?
The animals are kind of equal, Mr. Speaker, because what I know is that they have very good breeds, they sell, and a lot of us have been able to buy them, but in that report, they had not even disclosed this source of revenue. So, Mr. Speaker, would want to see more accountability, not just for the disbursed funds, but also for on-source revenue, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the committee made very good observations. And they observed that the County Allocation of Revenue Act provides that the National Treasury shall transfer the money within 7 days. And this is one such aspect that we should check that it is done. If it is not done within the next 7 days, we should be back on this floor of the House to speak about it, less than it becomes just a song for us to pass this schedule. The second thing that was observed by this committee, which is very important and needs to be picked up, is that there is a need to develop a policy framework on conditional grant, meaning we don't have a framework on which these conditional grants are operating. Conditional on what? Which agreements? What details are there in these agreements? And how do we have the criteria? By the time, sometimes we wonder, how do they choose which counties benefit? What is the criteria? Isn't it important to disclose for transparency and for accountability sake? So, Mr. Speaker, this is one such observation that needs to be followed up, and I'm sure we will be able to realize these budgets properly if we have the disclosure of these agreements and the criteria, so that then we also don't feel like there could be some favorism, because if you don't give us a criteria, then what are you using to give these conditional grants? Then, of course, they also observed that the rate at which the counties earmarked were using the money for construction of headquarters. This was a big topic in the Senate. The headquarters have been constructed year in, year out. Lots of money being spent, and in fact, to an extent that the Controller of Budget and Auditor General had to query and even came up with a ceiling. Imagine you have to now say, no, stop it. We are giving you a ceiling under which you're supposed to operate and be able to do a construction of the headquarters of the counties. We, at one point, had indicated that we actually need to audit and see how far they have gone. Probably they are through and we are still allocating. Or if you're allocating more than what is required, Mr. Speaker, this is an aspect that needs to be checked, because we need to operate within that forced ceiling that was given by the controller of budget, Mr. Speaker. So, and Mr. Speaker, finally, the preparation and adoption of annual budget and appropriation bills by the counties. You can imagine sometimes the counties, we've had severally that they use, it's like a carrot and stick, that we shall not pass these budgets until this happens. Yet the person who is suffering is the citizens that we represent. It is time we saw these budgets being realized in good time, appropriation bills being done in good time, so that we don't delay further. Because they are talking of counties suffering, but they'll be the same ones who will be saying that we are not passing this budget until the governors do this and this. So, Mr. Speaker, we hope to see cooperation in terms of how the county assemblies are going to move and how the executive is going to move now that the money is finally going to be dispersed. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Well done, Senator Pareno. Good contribution. I see no further interest. I now call upon the mover to reply. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like to thank all the senators for their useful contributions. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, although this appears like a routine thing about schedules and disbursements, a lot of useful debate has come out of this. And Mr. Speaker, other than what I made a proposal on on-sales revenue, yesterday it occurred to me, and I would like Senator Ongeri to hear this because this is an urgent issue, that one of the proposals, and I, as our teacher of law, Mr. Speaker, I think ultimately the solution is to have what is called the use in the National Council for State Legislatures in U.S. Parliamentary Audit Office. The money that we have been asking for, we should have auditors here who can not only give us financial statements, because I'm sorry to say, the Public Accounts Committee is giving us what is called financial statements, not value for money. What Senator Omogeni was talking about is value for money. I gave you 4 million to do a borehole. Was it worth it? Is there anything happening there? Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, just like in the case of Makueni, these people have become very good in drawing papers. They're going to do very nice papers and very lofty, nice statements, which eventually, Mr. Speaker, when you go back to the ground, you'll find nothing there. The last one is this. It bothers me, Mr. Speaker, that pilferage is happening when we have a control of budget. If you recall, Mr. Speaker, the previous constitution had auditor and control of budget. We split it in such a way that budgets can be controlled. If budgets are controlled, and if disbursements are being issued based on budget, Mr. Speaker, on what basis are people operating huge bank accounts? On what basis are governors withdrawing 17 to 20 million shillings in cash? On what basis are counties like Makueni keeping 18 commercial bank accounts? That is a concern that we must address. It's disappointing that in the vetting of the new control of budget, we will not have a role. It pains me dearly that we will not be able to tackle this issue. But I hope, Mr. Speaker, that tomorrow we can get our colleagues here and we can send this report straight to Treasury, straight to our assemblies, send the money within 7 days. Let's see some action. But as we continue saying, and we must continue preaching to that committee that we have bestowed our faith in. I said in Kitui, when I'm hung on the left, Professor Ongeri would be on the right, because we have given them, we have even entrusted them with our core mandate as senators, elected senators, for them to give us something. That is the pain we feel when we do not get something that we don't already do, because senators, this house has such good people that we do not go to our counties like you, Mr. Speaker. The temptation to go into a market and start saying the governor is a thief or somebody has stolen. We have restrained ourselves so much because we have entrusted that responsibility, as onerous as it is, on 9 members of the Public Accounts Committee. may you, Public Accounts Committee, not let us down, because it's going to be very, 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 very sad if that happens, that at the end of this session, Mr. Speaker, we are going to carry to our counties as empty shells and empty talk and rhetoric at this floor of the Senate, and nothing tangible other than passing good budgets. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply and request that under Standing Order number 61(3), that you defer the putting of the question until tomorrow. Thank you.
So ordered. Division tomorrow. This is an urgent matter of national importance. Thank you, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. And I keep on saying you are one of the senators who have mastered the ABC of legal writing and speaking. Accurate, brief, clear. Well done. Now, I direct that under Standing Order 40, we go straight to order number 19. Next order. Mover, as you prepare, the order has not been called out. As you prepare to move, Senator Zani and your seconder, beware of the clock. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 19, the Establishment of Children's Homes Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2019, second reading.
Distinguished Senator Agnes Zani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that lovely title that you have given me. I beg to move that the Establishment of Children's Home Bill 2019 be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, children are very precious in any society, as we know, and sometimes it's not easy for everybody to take care of children. So it is a fact that we have neglected children at various levels. And we know this, especially at the national level. Attempts have been made. We have children's home. Some of these are privately run. Some of them have been run by governments over time. But this whole idea of taking care of especially neglected children has not been cascaded to the counties. And this is what this bill hopes to do. It actually establishes in a very detailed format how these children's homes should be run, starting with the licensing of these homes, the sort of educational standards that they should be able to be facilitated to attain, the levels of health standards, the level of the homes themselves, the environment of the homes. Mr. Speaker, it will be very easy for me to quickly move this bill because the details are really just in the bill itself. The most important component of the bill is just to ensure that neglected children have a place to go to, and this has to be facilitated at the county level. At the county level, this bill also is legislating for county executive committee members to come up with specific not legislation, but come up with specific procedures within their various ministries to ensure that these children can be well taken care of. Also, it allows for specific legislation to be done at the county level so that these children can actually be able to have a place to call home. And Mr. Speaker, you're aware that over time, we've had children's home, and sometimes we've had some of the most scary stories about what has happened there. So it's important for us to legislate to ensure that even if children, maybe they are orphaned, maybe they are sick and they've been thrown out of the families. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we were talking about children with neurological and other disorders, and sometimes children really do suffer. Yet we know they're the hope of tomorrow. And Mr. Speaker, this whole bill is premised on Article 53 of the Constitution about the rights of the child. And this bill answers to each of these rights, to a name and nationality, to free education, to nutrition, shelter, protection, parental care, not to be denied, to be taken care of, to be able to have their food, and to be able to have everything that a child needs to be able to desire. And considering that we know that Kenya is an unequal society, we know that there's a basis there for a lot of effort that we need to make as legislators to address this, Mr. Speaker. And this bill also tackles the national aspect because this is already contained, but really stresses on the county aspect. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to pick on two clauses that I think capture the whole nexus of this bill. And this is what the licensee, this is the person who is running the home, should be able to do. This person should be able, for example, to employ a qualified person to run the home, employ such a qualified personnel across a particular criteria, ensure that each employee completes an appropriate induction, etc., to make sure that these caregivers can do a very, very good job. It moves on in clause 27, subclause 2, and talks about the manager. The manager of a children's home shall admit to a child where a child is not neglected, but to ensure that that child who is there is able to be given the care and the protection that is so desired, and that at the end of the day, they need to be able to have this child taken care of within the home and protected within that particular home. Clause 28 is about records and what those records should entail so that these children can always be followed and monitored at exactly whichever point that they might be. But it is at clause 28 again, and especially 28 and moving to 29, where specifics about the services that are going to be given with this home that are held. That this child who is there should expect 24-hour care and support services, that this child should be exposed to outreach programs, that this child should be exposed to recreational programs, that this child should be able to be given health facilities, that this child should have a quality service within that home, that this child should have continuous training, not only just educational, cultural training as well is very, very critical, that this child will be able to have processes which will help them to be able to cope. And also this responsibility and the process of the homes will have to be given as a report, so that a quarterly financial report will be given from the home and given to the relevant CC. The care delivered by the child, this person who is giving also the delivery service should have the experience, knowledge and skills to deliver the care. Mr. Speaker, I've just picked on those 2 or 3 relevant clauses, and these just capture the level, the very high level of expectation that this bill has in protecting the children, going with Article 53 and just going through this whole bill to ensure the licensing, the taking care of the child, what sort of education, and all the various components that anybody would think about to ensure these children are safe and sound in Kenya, for the future of Kenya. These are our leaders. We want to take care of them through this bill. So with those words, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request Senator Wako with a cue to second.
Very well. Senator Wako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to do this. I second this bill that provides a framework for the registration and licensing of children's home. As the mover has already said, this is a very important bill, and I also want to congratulate Dr. Zani for coming up with this very important bill that takes care of the needy children in our society. The number of orphans is growing in our country, and unless we provide a safe centers, a children's home that can take care of them and give them all the opportunity that they need, then we may not be able to take care of them. Mr. Speaker, I support this bill, and I have managed to go through the bill. I've seen that it captures every area very well. Part 1, of course, provides the framework and registration, and then part 2, care and protection of neglected children, where we talk of, where it proposes the basic education, shelter, health, and everything. And then part 3 is establishment of children's home. The conditions are given. And part 4, care of the children within the home. Mr. Speaker, that bill, or the bill I'm seconding, will guide, because we know that in Kenya, many people even take the opportunity to exploit even the children. Some of them are even mistreated even in the children's home. But once this bill is effected, then I'm sure we will be able to protect our children even in the children's home. She has proposed on even the management and everything, which I believe will be comforting to the needy children in our society. I therefore support the bill. I would have said much, but because of time, let me stop there, and I support the bill and second. Thank you.
Well done, Senator Wako. Some of the best speeches are short. The senators, we'll still have a few minutes, but I will open up the matter for debate by first proposing the question. I propose the question, which is that the establishment of Children's Homes Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2019, be now read a second time. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise to support. First, in my forays as a Rotarian for the last 20 years, I've had the benefit of visiting so many children's homes. And in also my foray in attempting to deal with cases of defilement of children, Mr. Speaker, it has occurred to me that we do not have rescue centers or rescue homes for the children who are defiled. The country has concentrated so much on punishing pedophiles, Mr. Speaker, that we have not made an effort to have a place where these children can be put in and rescued. I was mentioning to Senator Zani that the cabinet last week suspended international adoptions for 3 months because of what appears to be child trafficking and regulated manner in which they are doing adoptions. Had this law been in place, Mr. Speaker, the cabinet would have found a method of regulating international adoptions and adoptions generally. Because you do not have that framework, people who are doing child trafficking have come into the country and have interfered because we do not have processes, and because they have dealt with an international arbitration of a child, and that child must be kept in a home, and there must be reports. In the absence of such a framework, Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid that even if they lift the ban after 90 days, I'm affected, Senator Mogeni. Yes, Kitui is there. I'm afraid even after 90 days of lifting that ban, Mr. Speaker, we are still going to end up with the same problem that the government is trying to run away from. The solution, Senator Zani, is this bill should be done so quickly that task force that the cabinet has approved to come up with structures of how international arbitration is done, one of the things that Senator Zani we should do to them is give them this bill. Because this is the answer. A place where you can keep a child can be tracked, a child, you can know their origin, etc., etc. I've learned, by the way, in counties like Makueni, which is very sad, that parents take their children to the children's home and pick them during holidays. Oh, yes. So I called my staff and said, can I go to Mtwande to do a CSR activity? They said no. The children were picked by their parents. They find a nice place to keep their children so that they can get food and provisions and etc., etc. Again, a structure that is abused, because a children's home should be to a child who has no parent, a child who has no guardian. When you're making an appeal for that child to get aid, medical care, education, there should be a proper structure. That's the problem. You have a children's home, New Life Home, Lenana Road along in town here. It was for a specific cause, children who are infected and affected by HIV. There should be causes. There's a children's home in Langata for mentally challenged children. I hope, Senator Zani, as I wound up, and I say this because I speak on authority, while we take care of the children who need care, those children who don't have parents, those young boys and girls who are dumped on the street in latrines and are taken care of by a person, the caregivers of these children, in more often than not, are forgotten. I would love to take this Senate to that children's home in Langata for the physically challenged, not physically, mentally challenged children. The patience of those women to feed, to dress a person who cannot communicate with you. Children who are affected by cerebral palsy. Senator Zani, please have a special place for the caregivers of these very, very, very vulnerable children, because I think that's one way of appreciating people who are rarely recognized. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support this bill. Thank you.
Order, senators. Order, senators. Order, Senator Pareno. I think we have a few seconds left, but for the convenience of the House, I think those few seconds can help us to do the adjournment. It's actually time. Order, senators. Order, members. It is now 6:30 p.m. Time to adjourn the House. The Senate, therefore, stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, the 26th of September, at 2:30 p.m.